Let's get started. So, the April 3, 2025 special meeting of the Malibu. You can't hear me? Well, that's because people are talking behind you, maybe.
And if anyone has any trouble hearing the meeting, please let us know that we should speak up.
The April 3, 2025 special meeting of the Malibu City Council is now called to order. Public comment will be limited to items on the agenda. If you'd like to speak, please submit your request to speak form to the clerk. I'm going to say I'm the presiding person today, so I have some discretion to ease that. And as far as I'm concerned, raise your hand if you haven't submitted a card, and we want to hear from you. May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Conrad? Here. Councilmember Silverstein?
I'm here.
Councilmember Euring?
Here.
You have a quorum with Mayor Pro Tem Riggins and Mayor Stewart absent.
Okay, thank you. Somebody want to volunteer to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Marissa?
Okay, we have
Over there.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Can we please have a report on the posting of the agenda?
The agenda for this meeting was properly posted on April 2nd, 2025.
Thank you. Somebody want to move to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
Okay, by affirmation, we all agree?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So that's so ordered.
You're doing good so far.
Yeah. Almost forgot how to do this stuff. Okay, we'll now consider the consent calendar. Do we have a consent calendar? We do.
We do.
Is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak on the consent calendar? I didn't think so.
Pull anything, yeah.
Is there a motion to approve? Does anybody want? There's one item. Does anybody want to pull it, or no? Just okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar item?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I second it.
Okay. Is there any objection? If there's no objection, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so ordered. That takes us to what we're here for. Fire rebuild policy discussion. We'll now take comment on the item number 2, I guess it is. Is it 2? 2A. I have one card here. Are there more? Okay. I'll start with the one I have. Marissa, you're up.
No, actually, can I wait a bit because I'm still gathering my thoughts.
Sure.
So I'm more take.
You know what? You could even start off and then come back and say more later if you'd like.
No, I think I'll just do the one shot.
All right.
So which one are we talking about right now? Just so I'm clear.
Oh, well, that's a good point, because there are 2 on here, aren't there?
So the council had wanted to talk about rebuild structure, potentially a rebuild SAR, and then also talk about technology. So those were the
Right,
two topics.
so this conversation, we're going to start off talking about what? The rebuild czar, the rebuild center? I'm just trying to make sure I got a perspective of where we're going.
Yeah, it's open to the council. I think this is the forum that you guys really wanted to have your open dialogue and just take it where the conversation goes.
Yes, I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
The second item on here is the technology item, which I think is pretty distinct from the other items.
Right.
So if you've signed up and your only comments are about technology, please hold them, and we'll get to them after we do the first discussion. But if you want to talk about it, you can. That's fine. But let's just do it that way. So the first person is Scott Dittrich, and it says 2 minutes. Is that 2 extra minutes?
1 extra minute.
1 extra minute. Okay.
Well,
I'm going to ask. Let's not do a timer. Go ahead, Scott.
keep it real short. Yes, we need a rebuild SAR, and I'll withhold the rest of my time.
Look at that.
There's an example we should all follow.
And that's also a good example of why we really don't need a timer. All right, Kevin Keegan, you're up. Here?
He's here someplace, I saw him.
Oh, I saw him. We'll come back. Norm.
The policy for the limitation on impermeable surfaces was not based upon situations where we have landslide situations. In a landslide situation like Big Rock, and basically we want as little water going into the ground as possible, because all that water going into the ground has to be pumped out and put into storm drains. If it never gets in the ground, then it will never add to the driving force that moves the landslide. So I understand why there's a limitation on non-permeable surfaces in other areas of Malibu. But we need to switch that around and change it when we're above a landslide. We don't want water going into the ground, and we need to encourage people to have impermeable surface, especially on Big Rock, where the water drains into a drain in the street and goes directly to the ocean. And if it goes into the ground, we end up having to pay to pump it out. So that's, that's the first thing. The second thing is, for the longest time, the Los Angeles County Water Department has been extorting infrastructure improvements out of individuals trying to build a house by working with the Los Angeles County Fire Department and getting them to do it. Now, I'm going to give you an example. There are many, many examples, but one that I'm very familiar with. The check valve in Topanga Canyon. Basically, at the top of Topanga Canyon, there are two tanks that have 2 million gallons. And there is a 20-inch water main that comes down to a check valve. Let me tell you how stupid the water department is.
Norm,
They put that
Norm,
check
let
valve.
me stop for a minute. I'm in favor of people openly talking today, but does this have anything to do with the agenda item? If it does, go on, but I'm not seeing the connection.
It does,
Okay.
it does. That goes into a check valve. If that check valve could be opened, and here's the connection, that water would flow into the 30-inch water main that feeds about 70% of Malibu. When the check valve cannot be opened, that water does not go in there. I am shocked that the water department for the county of Los Angeles has not been sued for fixing that infrastructure. I'm committed to fix it.
I'm still not
You get the check
understanding.
valve, right?
I'm still not understanding what that has to do with the use of the rebuild center and a project manager or a czar or any of the issues that are on the agenda. So, I mean,
I misunderstood the reason for this meeting. I
Okay.
thought
Oh,
that it
was
had
it the
to do-
water meeting? The sewer?
I thought it had to do with modifications that the city can make to make it easier on people in the city of Malibu that's trying to do fire rebuilds.
it's a good subject, but that's actually not what we're here for
Okay.
today. But that's what,
That's
I
fine.
like to give people leeway, and because sometimes you come around it from a different angle, but I just didn't see where that one was coming. So,
Bruce, you're more flexible than I would be.
Don, bearing in mind what we're here for?
Oh, are you sure Steve's gonna let me talk?
I would never stop you. I couldn't stop you if I wanted to.
So, I would be in favor of a building czar, rebuilding czar, more accurately, depending on exactly what the purpose and how it's structured. And let me explain. So, there is been a lot of great work by council and by the senior staff of the city to try and come up with legislative fixes to move the entire process forward. And that was the appropriate focus. And now we're getting a little bit more granular in regards to how we make it work functionally, which is ostensibly the reason to have somebody that has a position of authority to do that. Now, I imagine that this person would be somebody that understands the process well enough and can make executive decisions. Even though there's been a great amount of forward progress to accomplish the council's goals and the community's goals in regards to this, as things have begun to go out in the trenches, and I'm going to give you a substantive example here. I'm foreseeing some pretty big problems on our horizon. And one of those that has already manifested, and I can tell you, is slamming the brakes on the folks on the beach in regards to moving forward with getting their application in the door, is that it was communicated to the community last week by the city's coastal engineer, contract engineer from Cotton Shire, that it was going to be required to do sea level rise analysis. Now, sea level rise is reflected in our local coastal program, and it is, as far as I know, not reflected in the building code. And the intent of the council was that everything going forward, the planning verification, if you're doing an honest to goodness, disaster placement exemption plus 10%, that ought to go really quickly, and we all knew that there was going to be a lot of things that we were going to have to address going through the building permit phase. And the underlying justification for addressing sea level rise was something that is, of course, well-founded. Want to make sure that septic systems don't start discharging into the ocean and things in the future. But you need somebody that has a strong hand on the wheel, like a building czar. Why do we call people like this czars, by the way?
what I
It's
was
done all
thinking.
over the
Implementers.
country. It's way too Stalinist.
Give me where we're going.
So basically, what the city's gonna find itself in a position at, and there's gotta be somebody in authority to do this, is right now, it's very nebulous in regards to the science. The Ocean Protection Council has scaled back the amount of sea level rise to from 3.5 feet to 8 inches by 2050 because the sea level rise wasn't happening. But in Malibu, we have to go out 100 years under our local coastal program, which has been set aside, and that's 8 feet of sea level rise. And one of the things I know that you've been very sensitive to is that, you know, there's a number of people that have been here, living on the beach for 40 or 50 years. Are they going to be able to afford to rebuild even under FEMA standards? You start having to throw in sea level rise analysis, and that could be the final straw that breaks the camel's back. And so we do not know what to do, and the coastal engineers that we have brought on board to represent our clients to make sure we're addressing everything the city needs, because you already need that for the septic systems and the seawalls and everything else, they are not working because they don't know how to handle this. So in conclusion, it's very advantageous. It's a really good idea to have somebody of authority that all these different people, all the different departments, health department, geology and soils, city biologists, building and safety, not so much planning, because planning's hopefully going to be a very small part of this process. They can keep it all coordinated and move the system forward.
Thanks, Tom. Marissa, is this good time for you? Or you want me to
I'm
put your?
still on hold. then.
All right, I'm moving further down the list.
I'm looking forward to what you got to say, but there's
And
a lot
you
of
end
work,
up being
a lot of
you,
work
you
going
never
into
know.
this.
That's
Elise,
true, you see.
you're up.
I didn't say.
I'm going to speak on technology.
Okay, so we'll hold off. Brian Merrick,
Yeah, I was waiting for.
technology also? Cool. Joe?
I go on and on. Sorry. I think I have a lot of time.
Try to limit the amount of time, but take what you need there.
Yeah.
So the city is an expert at scrutiny, but not at building. This is why we need a builder as our rebuild manager from the community who's concerned about healing their neighborhood. Our primary challenge is that this person can help with the rebuilding process continues to be geotechnical review conducted by Cotton Shires. While new construction projects rightly undergo rigorous and often costly evaluations that span multiple years, many of which never reach completion, especially in Big Rock, our rebuilds are fundamentally different. We are not introducing new structures, but rather restoring homes that were stable there for decades. Unlike new construction, our projects do not require variance to meet safety standards. A crucial regulation cited by Ms. Doyle and Mike Phillips of Cotton Shires is section 110.2.3.6, which includes the following. Submit an engineering, geology, and/or soils engineering report or reports that contain at minimum a qualitative and/or conditional finding that the proposed work complies with the provisions of section 110.2.1 of this code. And it must contain recommendations for the stability of the site. Section 110.2.1 further clarifies that permits should not be issued if the project could activate or accelerate a hazardous condition that affects surrounding properties. Given this, a professional certification of the soils report should suffice. If a licensed insured professional's findings are not accepted, it raises concerns about consistency and fairness in the process. The rebuild manager can facilitate this and must understand how this works in the field, actually. Regulations should be applied as written without unnecessary discretionary hurdles. It's all in black and white. In Woolsey, apparently, there are still delays occurring with needless geotechnical reviews with new geotechnical maps that have not been shared with applicants after they've already completed their reports that found the site safe to rebuild. This cannot continue. Data from Big Rock Landslide Assessment District reports confirms water usage is at historic lows, 25% lower in 2022 and 23, and 2% lower, a little bit higher, 2% higher in 23-24. According to Nick Simon, who I met with last week, from Yale Associates, who's the head geologist at Yale, he said that only 10% of the water is being used right now. But we are still pumping out 50,000 gallons per day, where before the fire we were pumping out 80,000 gallons a day. And I consulted with Don Michael, who designed the dewatering system, and he said that septic discharge before the fire must account for far less than 20,000 gallons a day for this. But not, and then there's also irrigation and potential leakage of supply lines, so it's probably much less than this. So the key takeaway is that longstanding residents are not significantly contributing to the landslide risk. In fact, with the adoption of low-flow fixtures and drip irrigation, infiltration will be at least 50% lower than pre-fire levels. Since groundwater infiltration is the primary factor influencing landslide movement, reducing this decreases the risk. So we must recognize also that modern plumbing standards significantly reduce water usage compared to the past. A traditional flush toilet, this is what our rebuild manager would know, 3.5 to 7 gallons, but a low flow toilet flushes less than 1.6 gallons. So if every Big Rock home upgraded to low flow fixtures, total water infiltration would be significantly reduced. And if every home added a bathroom, overall septic output would still be lower than pre-fire levels. So fire victims, if they want to build a temporary home and turn it into an ADU, should be allowed as per the governor's order in Big Rock. As groundwater infiltration is the main cause of
Joe,
landslide.
I'm going to, the same question I had for
Yeah.
Norm. I mean, this is critically important for us to deal with, but today we're here to talk about process and how we can best help,
This
the
is
way
all
the
stuff
way we can do it
that-
in terms of how we do it, not what we do. And I'm not suggesting that's not important, and I'm going to hear from Dean. Well, every time we restrict it. No, but so today is like, how can we best use the rebuild center?
Right.
How should it? Who should it be there
This
for?
is why we need a rebuild manager.
Okay.
because
Okay.
this
So
is stuff-
talk about the need for the rebuild manager,
Tell
and
me
not,
what he's-
and
tell
not
me
what
what-
they're supposed to do, but what I mean. Not what rules they ought to implement,
Okay.
but why we need them and how they're going to operate.
How they integrate everything else, that's what I want to understand.
Okay.
And who we recommend?
Yeah, that's going to come too. Yeah.
You're voting on a rebuild manager, and our leading candidate is Abe Roy, who is not only a local builder whose home in Big Rock survived, but he's also an effective leader on both the Big Rock Task Force, Rebuild Task Force, and the Malibu Rebuild Task Force, which has 17 members, including members from every part of the Burn Star, plus 3 architects, Ed Niles, Luis Tina, and Lester Tobias. So with this position in place, we can eliminate inefficiencies in the permitting process, reduce redundant reviews by implementing pro-certification, introduce AI-driven application checks for over-the-counter approvals, ensure compliance while fast-tracking permits. This approach supports both city staff and residents, creating a clear, streamlined, and fair path forward. The solution is within reach. Let's make this happen. There is nothing to lose and everything to gain. The city needs a blueprint to protect the city, rebuilds, and fix the infrastructure of our city. And the rebuild manager role is the first step.
And he has the support of the homeowners association.
Yeah. And just here to be clear, we can't vote on making any of this work today. This is so that we can figure out what we want to recommend to the city council at a formal meet at a more formal meeting. Especially because we don't have 5 people here today. The agenda is to discuss this, hear from you, discuss it among ourselves, which we're prevented from doing under the Brown Act unless we're here for a meeting like this.
That's right.
No,
We can't make it
we
formal.
can't.
That's
No.
a review agenda.
So are you, is that it for now?
I mean, yes.
I would like to have a real clear understanding of what this rebuild manager is going to do and how he's going to interact with the rest of the city. Because I don't understand that right now. I've heard different versions of it, So just someplace,
He would prevent.
just somewhere down the line, I'd like to hear a real clear and crisp definition of what we expect this person to do.
Yeah, don't worry about that. When we're finished, the ones that signed up will call on you. Yeah, and I also, Helen, what are your thoughts about what you'd like to accomplish from interacting with the residents today on this?
Well, I feel like I know a lot about the rebuild czar, or whatever you want to call him, or Dean, or Abe. I know that the residents support him. I guess I wanted to talk to you guys for the first time in an open forum about the pros and cons and the problems that we might come up across, because I want to make sure that staff is supported and residents are supported, and we are working towards a solution and not trouble. Who gets to if there's a complaint, how does it work, right? So it's all like the logistics of, if there's an HR complaint, is he an employee, who's paying him, who's his boss? I would say it would not be us. If what's the hierarchy? It's a lot of questions that I have as far as that.
That's good. I'm in the same place.
Yeah.
Steve?
Yeah, no, that's
So maybe that can-
definition, clear definition, that's what I want to understand.
And maybe that can help orient the comments. And again, it doesn't matter if you signed up or not,
But I
but
think if it's from the community, they know what's going on with all the rebuilds.
We don't understand, I don't understand, I can't explain it.
Rebuilds are.
I need somebody to
all
explain it
right,
to
so
me.
let's get through the ones that are signed up first, and then we'll start calling on others if they want to contribute. Jeff Greer, you're signed up. Do you want to talk?
Okay.
Marissa, you want to talk now?
I'm still on hold.
Okay. So tell, I'm going to put
I'm
your
looking
card
forward.
aside, and
Okay,
if
that's
and when
fine.
you
I'll
have
raise
something
my
to
hand
contribute,
when
just
you
raise
get
your
to
hand.
the end.
Kevin, we called on you before, but you weren't here. Do you have some comments on these issues?
Kevin,
Kevin,
Yeah, sorry, can I speak during the technology conference?
you can speak then, yes.
Thank you, sorry.
All right, so Brian?
Yeah, so I actually think that maybe, I've been through the rebuild center a few different times. I have a little bit of concern about one person understanding the many different types of properties, okay? So you have the Big Rock, obviously they're very much behind that, but how are they gonna work with the beachfront people? How are they gonna work with La Costa Landside, like the other areas? So, and I don't know whether you could have multiple czars for multiple neighborhoods. Maybe that would be it. I do think that a centralized type of person that could make a decision would be helpful. When you go to the rebuild center, you work your way through, and it's been very helpful. There's generally somebody there, which is nice, because you don't always get that here at the city. So that's been pretty good. But that would be my only concern, having done that, is how would they interact with other areas? And even the beachfront should be segregated into different things, because there's certain areas that are much better off than other areas and face different sort of hurdles to get through. Man, just the sheer expense of this is insane. The consultants and everybody, and they have to get involved in this to satisfy what they want down at the building center is pretty heavy. That's my feedback.
Thanks. Howard, you wanted to make a comment?
So the rebuilds are, I've talked to Abe quite a bit and others on the beach, and I think that the biggest disconnect is the people that got burned, they don't understand the building process. They don't understand the city process. They're overwhelmed. They're hearing stuff on Nextdoor that's nonsense. They're hearing stuff other places that's nonsense. Abe is a good example. He's very well educated. He understands the building process. He understands streamlining. He understands technology. He's the best person they could have picked, in my opinion. And he would be somebody that interfaces with the neighborhood. And I agree there should be multiple czars for the beach. But he interfaces with the neighborhood and the city. And he understands how the plan should be submitted, what the different subcontractors and surveyors and everything need to do. And he works with the neighborhood so that when the neighborhood submits their plans to the rebuild center, I just got back from Europe this morning, so I don't know what the rebuild center is yet, but I'm sure it's cool. And that he interfaces so that when you go into the Rebuild Center, Tyler's smart enough to be able to look at your plans and with your architect or your professional or whomever it is, and say, okay, this, and this. And if they're minor, which most of them will be if Abe or somebody coordinates and communicates with the people in the burned area, then like Vic Peterson and others used to do, you just bubble it in red, sign your name to it, the architect takes his pen or pencil, makes the change right there on your plan, somebody stamps it and you go. It shouldn't be any harder than that. And they can, like Abe can interact and speak Yolanda's language and Tyler's language and Rob's language, where a lot of the people in the neighborhoods that were burned out can't. They don't understand it. Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Arno, you've had your hand up for a bit.
So I'm trying to clarify. So what the Rebuild Czar is not supposed to be is someone who bullies through code on behalf of the residents. So the question is, what is the value of the Rebuild Czar for the residents, and what is the value for the city? The value for the city is that you have someone who interfaces with the residents who weeds out the crazy ideas. Because he would be acknowledged as someone of them. So he protects the city, he protects the speed of the process in that sense. And for the residents, he might be the voice of reason in fringe questions on possibly geology, possibly other areas, where he can advocate and be recognized as an expert in the field, who can be understood and maybe tip the scales one way or the other and be kind of the voice of reason that is acknowledged by both parties. And that's how I would see him, but it would only make sense if he then also has a certain level of authority and ability to decide, because if he's just a talking head, that wouldn't help anybody. So he needs to have a certain ability to tip the scales and be the voice of reason, advocating for both sides, the city and the residents.
And by the way, I've noticed everyone who's speaking about this has said he, him, and I think that's only because the only people that have shown up so far as possible volunteers for that position have been men. But that's not intended to suggest that any of these people, one or more, would need to be a man. It clearly does not need to be. So it just strikes my ear strange when I hear people constantly saying that.
He or she?
They, them.
This person, whoever this person is, it will be a human. Saiwa, did I pronounce your name right?
I'm giving my time to Abe.
Okay. Oh, to Abe. Well, I'm gonna get Abe to come up, even though he didn't sign up. Same thing with Sharif?
Yeah,
was that for Abe? Okay, yeah, so Abe, I think we do need to hear from you as to what you envision this person would do.
On a couple of comments. First of all, really appreciate the support. Look, it could be anybody, and I have really said this a number of times. If the process is simple and streamlined enough, then we actually don't need this position, and I genuinely mean that and believe that. I think starting out, Steve, to your question, what is this role going to do? And to bring this to life very specifically, we need a series of workshops, and I know, Bruce, you've spoken about it endlessly as well, to talk about these critical issues that are impacting landside owners, beach owners, but there are a number of issues which are at a platform level, at a process level. We put out the process on our website that's, a lot of folks took offense to, and my point was, yes, it is an offensive process, and let's talk about fixing it as opposed to, getting upset about it. This is collectively affecting all of us. So that's going to be the first order of business, is to look at the process steps. There are 43 if you count them right now. And there are so many of them that are not affecting safety or anything, but that are just, we're just waiting for receipts to invoices. This is purely administrative stuff. So workshop number one would be to streamline that process, and that affects everybody across the board, broadly speaking. Then there are issues that are focused on the beach side. There are issues that are focused on the land side. On the land side, we've heard, geo stuff. To bring this to life, once again, specifically, the Rebuild Center is great. But what we need to do to evolve to the next level is the kind of conversation that are happening at the Rebuild Center. Let me give you a specific. A particular home was asked for a geo study. Now, incidentally, that home has been standing on the bluff without caissons for 50 years, and the foundation looks great. Now, we talk about factor of safety a lot, and in Big Rock, a slide zone factor of safety needs to be over 1.4, 1. Whatever it is. What is factor of safety fundamentally? Is the ratio of the resisted forces divided by the driving forces, and we need it to be over 1. Now, the foundation is intact. It is clear evidence that the factor of safety, the resistive forces, have won for the last 50 years. Okay, there is no fundamental concern. And that's what we need to negate. Now the cost of the geostudy, incidentally, is $40,000, plus a lot of reviews and a lot of time. That's the kind of practical conversation that we need to have, that there is clear evidence that factor of safety was greater than 1. That is 1.4, 1.7 is not the point. The point is for 50 years it has been established because of that very simple metric. I'll give you another example. This is a real conversation, 20406 Seaboard Drive and 20495 Roca Chica. My architects went down to the Rebuild Center. They were ready to submit for planning. They were asked for a survey. Now that is standard procedure, that is standard protocol for a new construction. But in these particular cases, these homes were not even 10% addition. These were like for like, exactly building to the same footprint. Now the foundation is intact. The foundation is intact. Now we may, new code, new construction, we may still put new footings and so on and so forth to bring it up to the current building codes, right? But the point is, there is really no need for a survey as such, because the landmarks are well preserved, and when you start building, you can get a surveyor to do a lot line verification to make sure your setbacks are proper and so on and so forth. And this is not an alien or a novel idea. This is exactly what's happening in the city of LA. And to suggest that the city of LA doesn't know what they're doing, that's not okay. Because we are routinely building this. Now, what is this survey actually costing? The survey is costing about $3 to $4 grand to the homeowner, who has a budget of $1 million to build a 3,000 square foot home back, okay? And it has caused already 4 weeks worth of delay. Why? Because the surveyor is backlogged. The surveyor showed up and said, okay, I can't do a survey if there's debris on the lot. Okay, so now we are held up. We can't submit the plan. Now the person at the Rebuild Center did exactly what the protocol suggested. New construction, you need a survey. Nothing wrong with that. But this is a case where we're in between a new construction and a remodel, sort of, because the foundation is there, and we need to have these sort of conversations where it doesn't affect safety, it doesn't affect anything at all. We are still going to rebuild the same house, exactly with the right sort of setbacks.
To help us understand, though, if you or some other person were appointed a project manager or a builder's representative, because let's not talk about czars, for that neighborhood, for that area, or overall, because those are all options, right? What would you be doing? What would be your role? And who would you work for? What relationship would you have to the city, to the staff, to the city council? These are the things we need to understand to figure out whether this makes sense.
Yeah.
And everybody keeps telling us what the problems are that they're encountering, but no one's really telling us what they envision these people will do and how they will do it. And that's what we really need to understand. Am I saying?
That's exactly right.
And to piggyback on that, which, not to conflate issues, but with that example that you gave, who is the end? Like, who is the end result? So now you've got a conundrum that could be safety. Who has the last and final say? Is that the city, or is that the not czar? So, like, that could be a real troubling conflict.
So the thought that we had offered was we'd operate in what is routinely done in a number of corporations in a classic matrix organization, right? So the functional reporting would remain with Joe and his staff, right? With the resources that are part of the Rebuild Center and so on and so forth. So the Rebuild manager would not assume any direct sort of reporting relationship to the people that are working in the Rebuild Center. But think of it as sort of like a project manager or a program manager of sorts, where a number of activities are happening. Think of this as one large program where we are trying to rebuild these 700 homes, and with all of these factors, all of these variables at play. And the resources are still managed by the functional heads that are residing within the city. Now, the rebuild manager comes in as a program manager to bring it all together. What are they specifically going to do? They're gonna facilitate the workshops. Haley, to your question about who's the ultimate authority in terms of making the decisions, council is. The workshops are going to put forth the ideas. The workshops are gonna put forth the ideas and the recommendations in specific scenarios, put it in front of the council to vote, and then we will decide. And once again, back to those specific scenarios, if the foundation is intact and it's looking great, then do we still need to spend $40,000 doing a geo study? The council gets to hear the merits and the demerits of the argument from both sides of the equation in a very cohesive manner, and then gets to vote. Yes or no?
Now, you're not talking about on a project by project, on
I'm
a
not talking about
development by
project by
development
project.
basis, you're talking about as a general rule.
As a general rule,
Okay.
and we'll start to build affinities of these rules as they emerge. We are not gonna have 700 unique cases. We are probably gonna have 30 that'll affect 90% of them. And we need to adjudicate those 90s, have a template of how to handle those, so we don't discuss each one of them specifically.
And are you deviating from code and safety?
No, not
Because
at all.
I'm in no position to,
No, this has got nothing to do with affecting code whatsoever. This has got nothing to do with affecting code whatsoever. This is all within code. This is how we interpret and how we apply. Like, I'll go back to the requirement of the ask for a survey. Code doesn't ask you to ask for a survey. Okay, that is something that the planners want in order for the building to happen properly. Now, if we can establish the building will happen properly, that is what the code cares about. The code cares fundamentally about a safe structure as built.
and this is different than self-certification,
No, that's different.
totally different.
That's
Okay,
different.
so it's, what I heard you say, what I think I heard you say, is that this building czar, building manager, whatever, is going to interface with the neighborhood, just identify the items that are either presenting roadblocks or speed bumps or whatever, and take those items and in some workshop format, present that for somebody to make a decision of whether we should continue down that path or whether there are other ways to do it. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct. There will be decisions that will be made in the workshops. There will be specific recommendations that will be made in the workshops for these conditions.
So why do you need the city council even to, that's a good idea. Go do it.
Howard, briefly, Howard.
The reason you need it is because you guys have to give Yolanda the authority to do this.
To
It's
do
like
what do I think you have
to go to take things like Abe just said, like a survey, okay? If she
No,
does-
what Yolanda, no, what he just said was.
Let him finish
No,
his
no, because he's wrong,
thought.
because what Abe said he's gonna do is put together some topics, present them in a workshop, present them to the city council, we get to make the decision that says, do we wanna proceed down this path, or do we wanna go another path, and then we take that decision and give it to Yolanda. That's how I think it works.
But the thing is, what he's talking about, and the topics that he's talking about, which are super important here, is using common sense to help the residents build back faster. And what Yolanda and other city employees have to work with within the political will of the council. So if the council gives her permission, for lack of a better word, to use more common sense than strict black and white, what Abe is saying will work a lot better.
I'm not sure
I'm still confused.
yeah, that doesn't make, look, Yolanda is gonna follow the rules, okay, whatever rules we're dealing with right now. I believe as we've done in the past, okay, we sat down and said, we think this is the way this rule should be applied. And we make a decision, that's what we do, all right? And we give that to Yolanda, and Yolanda executes it based upon that. But I'm not sure what you want me to tell Yolanda to do. Yolanda's gotta follow the rules, unless those rules are changed, and we seem to be the legislative body that can
So
change
then
those rules.
maybe the thing is, what Abe comes up with goes in front of you guys, and you guys decide, is this reasonable or not? and then you direct Yolanda to do that.
And I don't disagree with that. Sorry, go ahead.
That's good. First of all, I was going to say, Joe, if you feel like you have something to contribute or want to steer this, just feel free to jump in. Okay, I just want to make sure you understand that. I've listened to a lot of people talk about this. I mean, what I think Abe is saying, and I think Howard's saying as well, is there are rules. So for example, using Big Rock, there are rules about stability. You have to satisfy a certain standard. But the question of how you figure out whether you're satisfied that standard isn't set in the rules. That one person might say, I can figure that out. One engineer. I mean, we're not talking about just people coming in off the street and having their own ideas. A professional who does this for a living, who's certified, may say, the way you determine this sufficiently is by doing X, Y, and Z. City staff may say, we think you need to do A, B, and C also, because we're not satisfied that X, Y, Z is sufficient to prove that it's stable, or whatever forgive me if I'm not using the right language. And what Abe's saying is, they're going to get to points where maybe they'll reach agreement with the staff, and they'll say, okay, now we know everybody has to do this. Or maybe there'll be a situation where the residents are saying, no, we think X, Y, Z is adequate, and the staff has to stop telling us we require A, B, C. And that has to come to the council, and the council will either say, we hear you, but we're sorry. We think the staff is right on this, and you're going to have to continue to abide by that rule. Or staff, stop requiring ABC, because as they said, the code doesn't require it. This is one of your policies. You don't have, and we are overruling you on that policy. Am I understanding correctly what you're suggesting?
Yeah, no, I think you got it right, Bruce. That's sort of the way. And to bring it to some, once again, to make it real, let's talk about a practical example, right? Septics. Now, this has been discussed a lot, that even if septics are intact for the beach homes, in order to bring it up to current code, there is a requirement to upgrade them, even if the septics are determined to be okay in some cases. Now, that could be a point of conversation, right? Because the septics inherently will entail a bunch of other things and so on. And that's where we get together in a focus workshops. We arrive at a recommendation, like you said, if we are aligned, then that's it. There's no need to escalate it up to the council. But where there is a decision to be made, an adjudication to be made, all within the building codes, then that's fine. Now, similarly, there is the process element, which is the process right now is very administratively heavy, and that needs to be streamlined. Now, what we can or cannot streamline, that can also be, put forth in front of council to say, go or no go.
Okay, and just by way of another example, I think what I was hearing before also is this wave uprush issue, or I'm sorry, sea level rise. So if I'm understanding correctly, and if it's been misstated or if I'm stating it wrong, please step in and say so, Lauren. The FEMA floodplain, that's a federal thing, and for insurance purposes, it has to be satisfied, and we don't have control over that unless we just decide to disregard it, which we're not going to do, obviously. But the issue of sea level rise, if it's not in the building code, but is that accurate, that it's not a building code requirement?
It's indirectly in the building code. It's in the, and we don't use that necessarily for the floor height. We're using it to protect the on-site wastewater treatment systems to determine how high the seawall has to be and how far back the return walls have to go so that you don't get them flanked, right?
So is it black and white that a sea level rise analysis is necessary to do that, or is that a judgment call?
The way it's indirect, but I will tell you exactly what it says. It says you need a coastal engineering study to determine how to protect the OWTS, and it refers to the coastal engineering guidelines. And in the coastal engineering guidelines, it says you have to address sea level rise, and the coastal engineering guidelines were adopted and referred to in that code. That's part of the reason why they were written.
And is there a number of years that's specified, or can reasonable minds differ on that?
I have to go back and read. Possibly reasonable minds can differ on that, but I would like to say that Don misstated. If you were to go by the old Coastal Commission, it was 8.5 feet prior to 2024. They redid it. Now 100 years is 6.6 feet. But that's the intermediate to high. we're looking at, and we haven't issued the guidelines yet because we're hearing we're taking in the feedback for both geotechnical and coastal, and we're trying to, be reasonable, what we present to Yolanda for final, implementation. We're looking at 4.75 feet of sea level rise because the Coastal Commission guidance allows you to use intermediate when it's not really feasible to use intermediate to high. So we've decided intermediate is better. The only reason it's 100 years, and I'll stop after this, is because normally a new seawall would be a CDP. I understand it's not now, but if you were spending the money to build these very expensive houses, to rebuild them, I would think you would want something to last as long as possible, but we're open to looking at lower levels,
So-
lower years, like less years.
Thanks, that's very helpful. Let's bring it up here for a bit, and, because you wanted to talk about this among us.
Yeah.
And then maybe that will spur a need for more information from the community. I just want to say, I feel like this is what we should be doing. I mean, whether we reach a resolution of any sort or not, we're a small community, you're all impacted, we're impacted in different ways, but we need to be doing this together. We're in this together. It really isn't us against you, it's not the staff versus you, we're all in this together. We need to find a way, and I think that's what this project manager thing is about, find a way to work together in a way that it's not 700 people and the staff.
Storming the staff.
Yeah.
Which is what I want to avoid, because I think that if we could streamline that process, we're in a win-win, like somebody said. I didn't realize that these things would come to council. So that's news to me, because we deal with the appeals, which is very time-consuming. What I worry about is if the building manager can't get to an agreement with staff, that puts us now it's between us, staff, and residents, right? Playing it through, we have to then be the mediators or the arbiters, and then, I don't want it to be like, we can't come to an agreement, and then there's a council item every week where we now have to mediate this.
Well, I don't want that either, but, we might not have any choice.
I think when it comes to we try to always bring any policy matters to the council because that's not our lane, right? So if there's something that has a policy discretionary item, that is something that you're trying to bring to the council to discuss. Now, if there's a question on aspects of the building code being policy or legal, that's a much different
Especially if it's
discussion.
applied to some particular property, that's
Right.
really not something we should be bringing to the council. It need to be something in general, different ways that, it's being in the policy lane, like Joe's saying, instead of an application or quasi-adjudicatory like application.
So just to piggyback on that, so let's say the Drummonds, I always use their last name, has a controversial issue. They bring Abe in, Abe meets with Yolanda and Lauren, and y'all can't come to an agreement. And you're like, well, it's to council then, and then we're now waiting 2 weeks possibly for that to be agendized, and then it might get delayed, and I'm not sure, only because we have a lot of agenda items, so I don't want to be the source of your guys' delay. Just thinking out loud.
Yeah, I didn't get that the residents, the residents would love to have instant decisions by whoever the ultimate decision maker is on everything, but that's not what I thought we were talking about. I think what we're talking about is there are going to be general issues that are going to impact entire areas or large swaths of people who are seeking to rebuild. It may surface as a result of one project where it's the first one to recognize the problem, but it's going to be a similar problem that's going to then percolate throughout everyone who gets to the same point that one got to.
Right.
And they want to be able to short circuit having to go to every single one of them and figure it out and then maybe have an appeal at some point. So we've identified a problem, this is going to affect 50 homes. So Abe talks to the staff, tries to work it out, tries to find a common sense solution that cuts through some of the red tape. Maybe he can, maybe he can't. If he can't and he still feels strongly enough about it, he says, well, then I feel we should bring this to council because I feel strongly we're right, staff feels strongly they're right, we need this resolved, someone's got to resolve it. If we don't resolve it, it gets resolved. The staff has resolved it. If we don't have any ability to get involved or no one has the ability to bring it to us, we've essentially said, then fine, the staff's decision is the decision. If you choose not to choose, you've made a choice. So this is just a way to get it to percolate faster, not on a build-by-build basis, but on things that are identified that are going to affect large
Right.
numbers of rebuilds.
Okay.
And I like that, I want to find a way to accomplish that, I'm just not sure how we do that, and what kind of empowerment you give one or more people. Go ahead.
Look, and I don't disagree with what you just said. You know, I think there are going to be general issues that are going to impact a bunch of houses that Abe can bring up. I mean, and those are the things I think we deal with in his task force or his city meetings or whatever the heck it is. He tries to get them accommodated, and if he doesn't, he comes to city council, and we can make an overall decision that says, this is going to impact 30 homes or 40 homes, so this is how we want to handle that. I agree with that.
So what he needs, though, see, I think what he needs in terms of institutionalizing this, and we're just using you as the example, I mean, is needs the ability to be able to get this room, right? Needs the ability to have it broadcast to the community, that on X date, at Y time, we're going to have this forum.
To talk about wave uprush. or
Yeah,
whatever.
they need to be able to at least get one person from the staff who's knowledgeable about the issue, who can come and do the point counterpoint or explain it better. So they know, residents don't have that kind of access, and there's good reasons for that in the ordinary course, but this isn't the ordinary course.
But we're having meetings every week. I mean, and we could have 2 meetings a week, I don't really care. I mean, if the issue is big enough and people are bringing it up, Abe can contact and say, these are the issues I've got, and we can schedule the meeting that week or the next week to get it solved. You don't disagree, you disagree with me?
No, I would have meetings every week, absolutely, and appreciate it, but we're not having conversational meetings every week.
Yeah.
So that's very different, when someone from staff, someone from the residents are speaking, discussing, and then hopefully, my guess is probably 70% of the time, if not more, they will agree on something.
And having us out of the way, because we are, as like it or not, we intimidate some people, right?
But why, when Abe sits, let's assume it's Abe, all right? So Abe sits down and has an issue, whatever the issue is. He sits down, he talks to city staff, right? He can go in and talk to the Rebuild Center, talk to Yolanda, whatever the heck it is, and say, here's the issue I'm trying to get resolved, and they either find a solution or they don't, right?
Well, Abe does not have the authority to make sure they actually sit with him and discuss this on a bigger scale rather than a one issue.
So is the question, do we ask Yolanda or staff to once a week or once every couple of days make some time out for Abe or one of these czars to come in? We can do that. I mean, that seems to be a fairly simple process.
Also, the authority to request that if there's absolutely no resolution between them, to actually then take it to council. This is not something that.
He doesn't need staff permission to do that. He can bring it to council.
But we all know how difficult it is to get things up to the council, even we have a
Well,
difficult time
yeah.
sometimes. And you know, and I understand the
Then
staff
we got to
is so
figure out a way to
overworked.
make it simpler to get it here. But look, I am a big fan. I think having a czar for each particular neighborhood is exactly the right way. Huh?
Okay, administrator,
Project,
mediator.
Whatever you want to call it. I mean, but having somebody.
Representative.
Ombudsman.
Yeah, having
Ombudsman.
somebody who is talking to the neighborhood and understands the issues that they're facing. And hang on, all right, guys, you want, and somebody who can talk to the neighborhoods, identify the issues that they're faced with, and bring those issues up and get them in front of the people that help make decisions, I think it's a hell of a good idea, all right?
and
And I don't know why we need us to do that, all right? What you need us to do is provide you a vehicle so you can take the information you have and get it in front of somebody that can make a decision to help you get it
Well,
solved.
Steve, like I said, what they need though is they need our imprimatur, that they can have access, like for example, to this room. That they will have the ability to call upon one or another staff member who's particularly knowledgeable about the subject to come attend the meeting. That the city will let the public know through its PR process that this is happening. That the city will identify these people to the community as people, this is the person, if you're having this kind of problem, in addition to the staff, you can reach out to, who might be in a position to facilitate a resolution.
Has the city hired them?
No.
No,
Okay, they're not.
at least that's my view. We
I
will.
just want to get that out
No, we
here,
don't.
so we're all.
She means Woolley.
Oh.
I just want to make sure we're all on the same page,
In
because
this
now is our
Sir, can you
chance.
just repeat yourself before speaking and having a hard time hearing?
Is this ombudsman, administrator, mediator, or representative a hired position within the city of Malibu?
I don't picture it that way.
I don't
Okay.
picture it that way either.
Do you guys picture it that way?
Okay.
should be elected.
Okay.
I like that.
Now we're talking about, okay.
Should be what?
I like that.
An election.
You know, some kind of an informal selection process. Because we've presumed that the people who've been the most vocal actually are the right people and that they speak for others, but we don't know that. There's even a lot of people we don't even know who they are, right? That 140-some people on the beach haven't even shown up. We don't know who they are. I just like to ask a question also, and I don't mean to put anyone on the spot or make you feel awkward, but how many people here have lost their home?
Waste time.
Right now.
Previously.
Right. And I think it would be helpful to hear from them specifically, one by one, what they
I
like.
feel like
what they-
I've heard pretty much from everybody. I've been on a lot of the Big Rock calls, and I mean, I would like to hear from the beachfront residents at some point, or the La Costa, the Las Flores, the Rambla, because they have very different, you know, I know what Big Rock wants, right? We've heard. But there's all these other communities and residents, as Brian has said, and they're all very different to
Right, so, I mean,
geographies.
the big issue is this uprush for the beach, is the uprush and the forced into the new septics, the alternative septic. So you don't have an option. We didn't ask to burn down. We didn't, you have a fully working system that's outside the footprint of your house, underground, survived everything just like many of the landslides, protected by a seawall, past all the things, but yet now we have to replace it. And it's because I believe that the staff is looking at it very much as if it's, and this is up for debate, really, in definition, but is it new development? I mean, we didn't ask to develop, and we're sticking with what we had. We're trying to stay within the footprint, and so now there's, and we're moving very fast. We're definitely moving very fast, but now we're on hold because of the septic, because we don't even, do we have to hire the guy to design a whole new system for us? We're already gone ahead and paid for the uprush study because we heard and, at the planning that was part of it, and that's okay, because the seawall's gonna protect everything. So what's the difference if the seawall protects a new septic or an old septic?
Right,
That's
so
working.
and this is an issue I'm hearing from a number of people, right? The question of if, it's a big if, right? If your septic has survived
Right.
the fire and it's structurally sound and, so people would need to agree that in fact it's safe and sound and survives.
Yeah, you would have reports.
Then the question is it a building code requirement that it be altered? Or is that one where reasonable minds could differ and we could say, yes, we believe that if people are content to use their antiquated system because they were using it the day before the fire and they would have been using it the next day had there been no fire, more power to you. You're welcome to do it, understanding that your new house that you're putting up might need a whole new system 5 years from now.
We're still subject to the inspections, we're
Yeah.
still subject to all that stuff. and-
So, Lauren, I don't know if this is within your bailiwick or not, but I mean, is that a black and white thing or is that just a city policy type of requirement?
I would say Lauren Doyle, understudy to EH supervisor.
Fine,
okay?
understood.
Knowing that I don't know everything, right?
Yeah.
What I know from the discussions is that it was a discussion with the water board, and the way that the code is written with the new LAMP 2018, right, after the lawsuit was lost, right, all of that background, everything is written to push people, there are triggers to push people to upgrade because they're currently in violation of the current code. So but I don't know, I don't understand exactly how the code is, so I'm not gonna say, the code says you absolutely have to. I just know that through a discussion with Yolanda and Celicia and the water board and the way the code is written,
So,
Look, we are not gonna solve this thing today.
No,
Right,
clearly
and
not.
look, I think, we're not, I think there's a consensus, the three of us here today, and I think the other two city council members who are not here would agree that if we have a representative from each neighborhood who says, here are the bigger issues that I have to get resolved to make it easier for my homeowners to rebuild, I think we're willing to listen to them. I think you've seen the city council and the staff up to this point in time willing to make changes. We're willing to adapt because, look, rebuilding, this is gonna be a son of a bitch, okay? This is not gonna be an easy rebuilding process. There are speed bumps we haven't even seen yet, okay, that are coming at us. And I think you're gonna see that the staff and the council and everybody that I've talked to are more than willing to try and accommodate whatever the heck we can accommodate to make it easier for you folks to rebuild. So I think our job today says, if we want to have a representative from each neighborhood, we want to present that representative with the ability to have a voice and be able to address the council if they've got issues they want to get resolved. And I have no problem doing that. I mean, if there's a mechanic we got to make up to get that done, let's do it. But I think that is a great idea.
So, wait, so Helen, let's get your feedback on this conversation, and then I'm gonna call on some people that have been
Okay.
raising their hands.
Back to your issue, because it sounds like there's a time, you're having a time issue now, you're waiting on something with septic, right?
No, we are done with our cleanup and everything, and we're now having to hire this guy,
Right.
even though it kind of seems like we shouldn't have to.
Are
but
we
we're-
waiting, are you waiting on our decision?
No, because
Okay.
staff has said that they require it. But
But are you waiting for us to say that we don't require it?
I think if I understand, he's one of the people whose septic, he believes, is intact and usable, and would be content to take the risk of not
But
replacing
we're building
it.
life for life, so we're not adding any
Right,
fixtures.
Right.
so would say,
Because the
I
argument-
understand that it's better to have a modern one, I understand that the modern
Right,
one will last a
but it's
lot
not
longer,
like-
and I'm making a big investment, but I'm the master of my budget, and I've decided I don't want to do this. So I need you to understand, City Council, whether this is a legally mandated thing that you have no discretion to change, or whether it's really a
Right.
convenience or makes sense to people, but you can change it. And then, if it's something we can change, that doesn't mean we would,
Right.
we would then have to have a discussion of the pros and cons of changing it.
And that's where I'm going with it, because there is a delay in anything that we do, right? And just by inherentness of the way that the processes work, right? So we're gonna have a meeting, I think, on septic and sewer next Thursday, correct?
Correct.
So what I would be hoping is that we have a presentation, maybe the Thursday after, with water district people, like, I don't know what we talk about, is it a taking, is it a legal thing? It's a like for like, but not really, right? Because I've read Danny's emails, not to throw him out there. But the thing is that like, those are all things that I think we have to discuss. Then we have to then policies it and vote on it, and those things can take a while.
But if we don't do them,
No,
then the
we should
rule is they
still-
have to get a new septic.
We should still do it, but there has to be at that
So just so you know, that's
expense
like
of
a
time.
$250,000 question.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
right.
exactly.
Totally.
So-
So is sewer, right? Like, are we or aren't we? What
Well,
are we doing
yeah,
here?
maybe-
And that could
maybe
be
we should
time.
Okay, hold on,
Maybe we
Howard.
should have
Hold on,
started-
Howard, hold on.
He called on me, thank you. To answer Brian's question, it's a regional water board decision. I think at the next meeting, the sewer meeting, they should be invited to
Exactly.
explain their own policies, because it came out of the lawsuit.
Yep.
The inherence of the issue in the groundwater areas like Big Rock is important, and they deal with that also.
Yep.
I'm working on the sewer from Malibu Colony, so I'm very familiar with process and policy of the regional board. We have to do the MOU recertification
Right.
constantly and everything. That's all gonna have to come under this process also. But in the general scope of redevelopment, I believe the gentleman is Abe, is his name, I haven't met him. On the certifications for stuff, if you have a foundation, it has to be cored and lab tested. You can't just tell by if it has a burn mark on it. It has to be tested and go to a lab to be able to reuse it. All these issues that are being discussed are state laws, codes, building codes, that our council has to follow unless you have the state. The governor cannot he can't waive those things. It's state law and it would have to be amended.
That's my point.
Well, the governor seems to
Marissa.
think he has the power to amend a lot of state laws.
No, he has the power to waive protocols, but not the law.
He
But I
waived the
watched
Coastal Act and he
Okay,
waived
well,
the
you can think
sequence.
we
We
I'll call
watched
him when I'm done here and I'll.
The presentation that
I've known him
Lauren
since he was a
had
kid.
about the clear, distinct
Yeah.
foundations. That, to me, I don't want them to be arguing and then
Right.
coming to council and being like, but my foundation's fine. And I'm like,
No,
that is
you-
not something
you
I'm
need to
interested
have-
in.
You have to have it certified, that's not negotiable.
It's not,
That's not negotiable.
if it's in the law.
It's in the law, it's in the building code.
But you can
How,
have a.
no, there's other people that have been waiting to speak, so we'll come back to you. But go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm concerned, I understand their grief, I lost in the 70s, when I first bought my house, I lost it. And I understand what they're feeling, it's very painful, it's very expensive. But I agree with them in the fact that I think there should be an alternative in a disaster situation with the water board. That's why I urge you to reach out to them and have someone from there, not secretary, a top dog, come and explain the hows and whys and how they can help interface an alternative for that. Because it's a life experience, and they're making rules. I have the same thing with Edison. They don't live here, they don't get their power shut off. So they have to be here, they have to represent the laws that they're required to
So we
implement.
want to reduce the amount of waterboarding, right?
And then just to piggyback on that, so with that sewer septic meeting, if there will be presentations or PowerPoints, because us in a vacuum, I don't know much about all of this. We could listen to everybody, all the experts, and then we can be more informed. So I was hoping that the water board would be here, or other types of sewer.
And
I met with Las Virgenes Water District.
you know, it may be.
That was interesting.
It may be that somebody like Abe, Abe or someone else that has that kind of position, who has some ability to speak for the city, not power-wise, but they have the imprimatur, as I said. Would it be able to facilitate that more than our staff, which is stretched thin?
Right, but who organizes him? Is that Joe or Mr. Tony, or is that me, or is that Yolanda? Who says, hey, I need you
Abe
to...
could
It gets
organize it
messy.
himself.
Right, no, he could do it himself. I think
Abe's a smart guy.
this could actually relieve pressure on the
Right.
staff, because the residents who have the most vested interest in making sure that this gets resolved with the water board, for example, could go lean on the water board to come talk to the city of Malibu and arrange that meeting.
Sure.
Rather than, because we keep being told, we should arrange this meeting and that meeting, and the staff just doesn't have the
I know.
the bandwidth to do all these
Yeah,
things.
just, look, again, we're making this much more complex than I think we have to. That's just one man's opinion. I think we're not going to solve any of these issues today. I think there's a consensus that said having these representatives of the neighborhood is the right thing to do, giving them the ability to have meetings and present the stuff to it. And I'll tell you, I had a conversation this morning, okay, with one of the residents who's got contacted Caltrans and the water board and has had experience getting them to do the stuff that he needed to get them to do. And he's saying, look, if I can help you, give me a call, I'm more than happy to do this. So there are ways, I agree with Bruce. There are people that we can call on in the city who may be able to help us get the representatives here without putting more burden on the staff. I mean, Norm knows everybody in this brother too, so.
So let's leave 15 more minutes for this subject before we move to technology. Marissa has one more point, and then we have the next person behind Marissa, and then gentleman in the back, and then if we have time, we'll come back to Scott and Norm. So let's go in that order.
My final point on this would be, I think if Abe is going to represent the association or the homeowners, to look as far back as the Bing studies for Big Rock. I lived here and I worked on when the Mormon Church sold the property out, they were going to subdivide it. And part of the reason they sold it was because it was slide, it was geologically unstable. Then it was sold and it was developed after that. And it's important to have that history, because history follows projects anyway, in jurisdictional oversight and permitting. So I think it's really good for them sort of to go back and look at the archival history, and then they'll understand some more of the things the staff is trying to tell them. We're not in an absolute sacrosanct moment here. So that's just a suggestion.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Honorable Council, for your time and all your effort to help us. My name is Leah Johnson. I'm part of AID and the Big Rock Group. Although my two homes that I lost in the Palisades fire were on Carbon Mesa. And but I mean, they're Malibu, Carbon Mesa, Malibu, yeah, the two homes. And I would like to bring up two issues. First of all, the foundation. Of course, we will have the debris removed, and then we will have it cored and lab tested and all that. So if the foundation passes all the tests, I am begging you and Yolanda and the building and safety and all the agencies involved to allow us to keep those foundations. Because even though the houses were built in 1955, those foundations withstood the test of time and the test of decades. Since 1955 to today, the houses will still be standing had it not been for the fires. Second thing, and of course that would be self-certification by our geotechnical engineer, by our septic, by our geoengineer and all that. And the second issue is the septic. So now we have two houses sharing the same driveway side by side on two different APN numbers, two different lots. Each house has their own septic. The septics are fine, according to, of course, we will have Eli Junior or somebody come and certify that and do a full inspection. But if the septic passes and there's absolutely no damage, no visible damage with my naked eyes that I could see, but if Eli Junior or any septic inspector certifies the septic that they're okay, then I'm begging you to allow us, not to require, to allow us to keep these two septics, since we're gonna be like for like. And
You can.
You can.
And not.
It's just the beach that they're
No,
doing.
it's
Just the beach.
Okay, I didn't know that, but thank you.
There you go. You got half of your wishes already.
You had a good afternoon already. That-
No, wait. In the back, you had your hand up. Somebody in the back had their hand up earlier.
Oh, I just, I think we had an opportunity here, and it seemed like we were kind of moving toward an idea that this position might just be a mediator or a representative for the homeowners. I would still like to consider the possibility that this person would have authority, not necessarily to overrule anybody, but a vote, a real seat at the table. And I don't think we're the first city to have a position like this after wildfire. So I would like to take the opportunity to present you guys with the details of that, how that would work. And I know we're not voting today anyway, so I think we have that opportunity.
Got something to send it to us, Joe. More than
Yeah,
happy.
actually, I would love, again, our staff is stretched super thin right now. And there are 100 things that are worth exploring, and they just have only the time to explore so many. Maybe they don't even have time to explore any of those 100, because they've got another 100 things that they're doing. I would be very interested to learn that there's a working model in another city, that you can show us, and how it works. Not how it succeeds, but what the protocols are, what kind of empowerment there is, where the guardrails are. Because we don't need to reinvent the wheel if the wheel's rolling along fine somewhere else. And it makes it a lot easier to make a decision to go forward with something if we've got precedent. So if that's what you're talking about, and others too, I mean, like Abe, if you're the one that wants to be, I know you don't want it, you're reluctantly doing this, kind of everyone else step backwards, right? But if you're the one's gonna step forward and be that person, or one of those people, help us help you. Give us the precedent, show us how it works elsewhere, so that we can say, oh yeah, we like that map, let's just adopt it here. Does that make sense to you all?
Yep. Makes total sense.
There was a third person, Scott.
Go to Lewis, I think Lewis was next.
No, Scott was next, and then we still have 10 more minutes. Luis will be after Scott.
Malibu Fire Task Force, Rebuild Task Force. I had never met Abe before. I live in Grambling, represent our neighborhood. This task force that Abe heads is made up of people from the beach, from inland, from every place, from Big Rock to Carbon. And he's done an excellent job handling everyone's concerns. So I really endorsed him.
Yes.
Secondly, an example. You guys could decide that all the fire rebuilds are in fact remodels, right?
I agree with that, we could.
Now, you could also say, which seems to be happening now in building and safety, oh no, it's all new construction. That makes no sense. It's not new construction. And I'm going to suggest that we have an intermediate category called, what are we going to call it? Oh, let's call it rebuilds. Disaster rebuilds. And it will be a model, not only for this fire, but for the future. And all that came out of this task force, that's probably the best way. And then
someone like Abe getting together with Yolanda and Lauren decides the parameters. And wow, and if this is done in advance, then everybody knows what they need, what they're required to do, and it's not going to be 737 people coming to council. Okay, you get the picture.
Yeah, so
I don't know, how would we proceed to get that rebuild category?
Right, so I was actually thinking something along those lines when I was hearing Lauren's example, explanation of the water board. Because, but this is, these are intricate legal issues. It's the stuff good lawyers cut their teeth on. I mean, we need to understand whether there would be the flexibility legally to call this something that would get it around whatever rule Lauren's referring to. Now, we end up getting sued by the water board, right? And then it gets delayed, God knows how long, because we're in litigation. That usually doesn't concern me. Usually doesn't, but it concerns me when you've got 700 families that need to get back to their homes yesterday. But those are the kinds of things, Trevor, I think we need to be examining. Is again, the way I approach things is, first, do we have flexibility? Because if we don't have flexibility, I feel for you, but we can't do anything about it if we don't have legal flexibility. If we're stuck with a rule, we're stuck with a rule. But if we have flexibility, then the question becomes, ought we exercise it? And that's where we have to we have to make the hard decisions. Do we or don't we exercise the flexibility that we have? If there is a legal way to characterize these rebuilds as not new development, and the governor's order almost kind of gets you there. It suggests it's a different animal, right? But if there's a way to call, that we have the ability to call it something that is different than what triggers all these building code requirements, that would be great if we have that flexibility. Then again, the question becomes, ought we do so? Because are we putting you in jeopardy by doing that? Are we putting your neighbors in jeopardy by doing that? Or, no, this one seems like a pretty safe decision to make. Like, I think maybe the septic is an example of it's not really putting people in jeopardy. But geology, maybe that's putting people in jeopardy. I don't know. But again, the thing I think is very valuable in having some kind of a system put in place, and I'd love to see examples of where it's working elsewhere, is it takes the onus off our staff from investigating these questions and having to educate us. It also educates us, and it gives us the ability to make informed decisions quicker, and which will resolve things one way or the other. So I want to find a way to accomplish this.
Maybe your council could give you an opinion. So you're asking for legal interface. What does Trevor think about it? Going to the water board, finding out what isn't that why he's here?
Sure and huts.
Yeah.
Sure. About the interface with the water board, like legals and all the stuff.
Are we talking about the potential sewer?
No.
Are you talking about in terms of
In
interpreting the building code?
in terms of, would the city have any standing with the water board by how it's legally set up to interface to try and get these people an alternative, not an alternative system, to put back what they had if it's not damaged by the opt-in equipment?
Well, I mean, you're talking about two things. I mean, like, we have the requirements that are in our codes that, are in our LAMP and that have been put in there. We have those adopted. We would have to make adjustments to them potentially depending on.
I understand that, but I guess what I'm saying is, do you have the ability as legal representative for the city to strong arm them there a bit? Strong arm them, or get information from them that gives it, let me finish. You talk to yourself, okay? I have my own brain, I don't need yours. He does this to me every time he sees me.
All right, let's ratchet it down.
So
Come on.
my question is this. Is there some way, even though the law is written, that you can find, there's gray in everything, as you know, that will give you the ability, or the council the ability, to interface with them, to start the discussion, to help these people not have to put the alternatives? I agree. I have one. I know how much it costs me. The quarterly reports you have to file, you gotta pay fees, they gotta have inspections up. It's a big burden.
Okay. Rather than going specific to the septic, it's about
The remodel.
It's about, is it a remodel?
Is it a remodel or a
Is it a
rebuild?
disaster
Can we
rebuild?
change?
Like, is there special circumstances?
Well, those could be things always in the legislation.
Right, but if you go straight for septic, they're gonna say no.
And by the way, this is the kind of thing, I guess this is the kind of thing also, I'm sure there are lawyers among you, really good lawyers among you who've lost your homes or who have relationships with you. Get them involved too. I mean, we welcome the input and the education. Our lawyers stretch thin too. There's just only so much we
I gave
can.
the city 4 law firms that I've been an expert witness on disaster litigation that did this, and I had no response.
They're busy.
From the city, on the 4 firms' names I offered.
Send us
This city's got more lawyers you can shake a stick
No,
at with.
no, we've
Well, these are
made,
different.
no, this, maybe
Right.
the city council should consider engaging a firm to specifically work on these issues.
That's
something
another option we have, I agree.
Maybe that's something that we need to bring up to council to discuss and figure out, because maybe there's a quick way to resolve some of these legal issues with a firm that deals specifically with these problems.
And they bring it to, in my experience, that one lawyer comes and gets the finances for you from FEMA money that the county's not sharing, and the other one tells you the protocol.
If you sent that email to the council, I don't recall seeing it,
No,
I apologize.
Send it to
Send it to
our
council, please.
city manager.
Make it a comment, send it to city council, and we can look at it and
Okay.
see if
I'll
it's something that we
I'll-
should discuss.
I'll dig out the firm names, okay.
Okay. All right, we got 5 more minutes and we need to switch to the other topic. Luis, and then, I'm sorry, your name?
Patty.
And then Patty, and then we have to cut this one off and move to technology. Dean, you should have raised your hand an hour ago.
I raised it after Louise.
Did you? 'Cause I was going to call on you even though I didn't see your hand before. All right, we'll end with Dean, because Dean's been talking about these issues the whole time, and I do think his input would be helpful and important. But, so Luis, Patty, Dean, and then we move to technology.
So the topic is the representative manager and the rebuild center, right? So thank you for letting me speak. Thank you, Marisa. The one word that we haven't mentioned is policy, and it's something that you guys can work on. So what the manager can do is be the direct liaison with you guys to bring policy items to be discussed and voted and made public. That's the way to streamline, that's the way to help a lot of people at the same time. So this ties into the rebuild center. It is great for the victims that need personal treatment, that need to feel cared by the staff. Okay, so I'm in favor of that. At the same time, it's the opposite of the streamlining. It's enclosed doors. You don't know what the others are discussing. You know they're telling one person to do one thing, the other person to do the other. So there has to be some sort of transparency mechanisms. There has to be a public report after each meeting in which everybody writes down what are the decisions and interpretations made. Try to categorize those by groups, bring them to the rebuild manager, and then be voted by you. Because maybe there's decision one-on-one that is being made that maybe you guys don't agree, or maybe it's being fair to someone and not fair to the other one, and we're helping one by one, where we could be helping 100 by 100. So I really please beg you to discuss about these things and to find out ways to maybe weekly bring topics about the rebuilds, things that we're learning, things that the staff is learning too. I'm sure that you guys meet weekly, right, in the planning department?
Say it again?
Yes, please slam back.
No, I just want to say, we're not making decisions one-on-one, we're providing commentary one-on-one based on the policies and the codes that fit their topic, but we're not making decisions one-on-one. So I'm not sure I agree with the characterization of what was on the meeting. And we do send emails afterwards going, hey, here's what we discussed, here's the information we said we'd provide you.
So then if the next person that goes and asks the same question, they have to spend another hour and something that they would have
Okay.
read before the night.
So,
Right,
so,
but that's why
Helen,
we're issuing guidelines,
this
so that doesn't happen.
is actually an example of the kind of thing that can make our job a little easier, because like we had, the last workshop was to develop policies, right, for the, or to direct the staff with our thoughts on what policies.
Staff
would
are
go.
working on that policy,
Right.
bring it back.
Yeah.
So some of that discussion may be had there.
But my point is, we could have maybe not needed to have that workshop where we and the staff were here for 3 hours or 4 hours. Instead, Abe or whoever and others could have been coming to us after meeting with the staff and proposing a policy list of what is a like for like and how do you determine what it is, because those are things we're all going to need to do. We need to do. But we shouldn't have to do the footwork. They're volunteering to do the footwork. I think we need to take advantage of that and they know better than we do, better than anyone does, what policies they need. Now, we may not agree with the policies once they're presented, but I think that's what Luis's point is, and to me, it's not going to create more burden on the city council. It actually would relieve some of the burden from the city council to have these types of workshops, because the residents, maybe with some staff help, can be having them, and then they could be coming to us with proposals. And I would hope 50% proposal, maybe more, would be they agree on that part of it. And then here are the parts we don't agree on, and we need to call balls and strikes.
And this will help the staff because they can, they
could.
know what they have to say. And it's a little bit of work at the beginning.
It's a lot of work at the beginning.
We are coming to 5 to 10 years of a lot of workload. Let's make it clear since the beginning, let's put the work rate.
Patty?
So, I'm a layman here and it's just a simple businesswoman. I believe in streamlining. You've heard from all of us. Most of the people in this room respect Abe and his ability and his knowledge. And so, I don't want to leave here feeling like you heard us, but nothing's happening. And I would like to get a time frame of when you all can make a decision to say, we agree, Abe's a good example, to work with Big Rock and the rest of the neighborhood. If the people on the coast want to have a representative, the people in La Costa or wherever, Las Flores, but most of us agree Abe would be a really good representative for Malibu and the 700 homes. So when could we expect you all to come to a decision to say, we agree with you, we're going to set up a meeting with Abe and Yolanda to be able to start getting this going, because it all makes sense. You guys are overwhelmed. We're a small community with not a lot of staff. If you have someone that they can connect with Abe, and maybe you have a separate meeting with Abe about how he sees being compensated for this, or what the time frame is, or if he's volunteering his time. I don't know exactly, but I think it needs to happen now. And I'd like to walk away from today knowing that this is going to, you're going to meet with Abe, or you all are going to meet and come back with us on a certain date with an answer.
I think that's a fair request. I'd be prepared, not the next city council meeting, the one after that, maybe we could pick a date to put it on the agenda to make a decision one way or the other. The problem is, I need the roadmap. What this gentleman in the back had mentioned. We can't do this in a vacuum. There have been a lot of good ideas that have been floated today, but they're ideas. I want to see I need a roadmap. And if we have a roadmap, we could put it on the agenda and we could vote it up or down. I mean, we may not approve it, but you'd get your decision one way or the other.
So they're going to send you a roadmap. They just both said they can send you a roadmap.
Okay, and with an example of where it's being employed.
And then we can't talk about it again, just letting you know.
Until that meeting.
Until that meeting.
Yeah.
And so we each get it separately, and then we have to discuss it in that next meeting. And then hopefully we vote on it.
And this is a frustration we all have with California law, but this is one of the places where our hands are tied. We are not allowed to talk to each other other than one other person.
So when are you going to review it? So what date are you guys setting to review it?
We're going to meet on the 14th. It's our next meeting.
There's no way our staff can get this on the agenda for that meeting. But I think if you all can get it to the staff and to us by that time, it can be on the agenda for the next meeting. If we have a consensus, then that should be. Okay, so 3 of us.
And
We get the roadmap, and we look at the roadmap separately. We don't discuss it, but we agendize it for the meeting, and then we discuss it at the meeting, and then we vote on it at the meeting.
Right.
And hopefully the mayor pro tem also have the same roadmap. They watch this video. Actually, can they?
Yes.
Okay, they watch the video, they don't discuss it, or unless they're Brown Act buddies, and then we move forward.
And you don't.
my roadmap.
And the staff doesn't need to prepare a report for this. They'll prepare the report.
Right.
We'll have
That'd
to
be great.
package it a little bit, but yeah.
You can package it with, this is their report.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a little bit of explanation on process. So what the council has been saying is correct. They can discuss it, but then there's still usually a vetting process the council is going to have to go through. It's not like at the meeting they're going to hire somebody. There's really 2 ways to do it in the city. There's either a recruitment process or somebody by contract. And there would be a process that the council would have to determine.
But not if this is not a paid position
Right,
and it's not an employee of the city, I don't know that those kinds of rules
I'm
apply.
Giving parameters if, depending on what route you go down.
I want
on
to
a
learn this
position.
because I want to manage my expectations. Because I'm new at this,
Yeah.
I really want to make sure that I'm clear on that what I stated was kind of what would happen, and it's not gonna be like, we're gonna put it out for RFQ, and then we're gonna come back with the PFC, and then we're gonna, you know what I mean? It's just like, we
Yeah.
do it, and it's done.
I'll go back and say one more, I think you got a consensus, if the three people up here and the other city council, I think the idea of having a representative from each neighborhood is the best thing we can do right now to get this stuff moving forward. I think all we're working out right now is some of the mechanics to say, once I got that, what is the best way to have that person communicate with us, communicate with staff, and we communicate back. That's what we're dealing with. So let's do that.
And they're gonna provide us
Yeah.
with precedent for how it's working somewhere else.
Yeah, this is not brain surgery, you know.
I agree with you, Helen. I mean,
I just like to manage my own expectations, because I have like, I don't want to overdo. I expect to, that was my process,
So-
and then it happens.
So let me
If
ask,
we vote.
I think Abe
I want to hear
should,
about Trevor.
Abe-
I'm really
go
worried
ahead, I'm
what you're
sorry.
going to say.
Go ahead.
That's
I was
okay.
gonna say, I mean, I think what staff is looking for out of when it goes to the full council is a description of the role and how,
Yeah.
what the role is gonna do, and the staff can then come back with memorializing that as a resolution or whatever else needs to happen to make that, fit into the city's process. And so if you can focus on how this person will interact and what their job would be,
Focus. Good.
that would work.
That's what they're gonna send us.
so since so many people so far have been pointing to Abe, and since Abe has been putting himself out as a person, I mean, please, can you work with whoever else you want to or wants to work with you to develop this game plan that is concrete and has precedent in terms of, hopefully it's in more than one other place? Yeah, has precedent, and give it to us as this is what we want you to adopt. We may not, we may reject it altogether, we may change it, or we may say, great, thank you so much, this is better than sliced bread. But, let's, if you can do that for us, we can then have the following meeting, and do whatever we're gonna do one way or the other for you. So the commitment would be, you guys get us and get the staff a report by whatever the date of our next regularly
Yeah.
scheduled meeting is, and we will then at the dais of that meeting, direct the staff to put it on the next agenda so that we can decide on it. Is that fair?
Let's do it.
Sounds good to me.
We would
Okay.
essentially need it next week to get it on the next agenda.
Yeah.
All right.
Next week. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
All right. I gotta
All right, Dean, last comments before we move on to the next
Sure,
subject.
go with that.
I'll go with that.
Sure.
What I'm, and if you guys have already made your decision that it's Abe, it's fine. It's not like,
No, we
it's not
haven't.
like I want the role either, but what I would put out is I've been communicating this since February 19th. And I've included a lot of the details you're talking about, right? So at a high level, I think the position needs to report to the city manager, needs to be running the gauntlet with city staff, the contractors and the owners, to bring everybody together in a much more proactive manner than we have been. And I'm not throwing any shade on anybody, but to use some examples, I'm very glad I heard Lauren mention earlier the roughly 4-foot guideline relative to the wave uprush scenario, right? I came up with that February 19th on my job site with Stuart Krigstein, Janelle Law, and my architect. And I forwarded it to Mary Ann Riggins. The reason I bring it up here is I'm not looking for credit. What I'm trying to demonstrate is we can be much more proactive with the criteria to work with everybody to get there quicker. We could have been there on February 21st. We could have been 2 months ahead of this. Scott brought up the rebuild. Another example, this is where I think we're tearing each other apart and missing opportunities. There already is, we went through it last night, there already is a rebuild category in LA Building Code. I forget the exact category. It's there. The point I want to make here that some people are probably going to hate me for bringing up, we probably spent 2 months talking about bulk, whether it's in, whether it's not. If you open up the rebuild, disaster rebuild section of LA Building Code today, it includes bulk. This city has adopted that code. So the reason Yolanda sits back and says, we need to follow code, she may not be as clear, but that's what she's saying. And if we as the community, the owners, the contractor, if we're looking ourselves in the mirror and doing ourselves justice, we bring that up. We do our homework, we're prepared, instead of just talking about it. We spend so much time talking about things, we're not achieving anything. So the reason I throw my name in the hat is because I'm pretty good at this stuff. And my vision is not just the permitting process. My vision is to help the city staff make the permitting process easier so we don't choke them up. Us as owners can do that by getting our plans better, working with our contractors better, being more complete. If we can get closer to a once through with the city staff will perform better. I'm not only happy with that, I'm not happy till we're back in our homes, and I would love to be there before the Olympics.
Okay.
So beyond the permits, we gotta actually build this stuff. We have volume of scale with 800 properties. Maybe we'll be able to, buy hardened materials and store them in advance and get some sponsorship or something to reduce costs to help people. We're gonna have logistical help on PCH to be able to build these things. None of these things have been discussed. Again, with the background I have, I know how to do these things. Granted, not in a residential area. I usually work inside an owner's facility, but I deal with permitting agencies all the time because we do heavy hauls, we do all kinds of things outside the facility that deal with the local people to be able to make it happen.
Okay,
so I'm throwing myself in for that reason, and I just ask us to think about it holistically so that we can move quicker the right way.
So please work with Abe, work with Dean. I don't mean to suggest
we
one
already
person's
are.
got it.
Perfect.
I've seen, and by the way, in the very beginning, I had written your name down to ask you for your input, and it just never got to it, and I didn't mean to suggest Dean, that Abe is the appointed person, because we haven't even decided to have this at all. And there probably, if we're gonna do it, will be multiple people for different areas, like has been suggested by a number of people. But please, work together and give us the plan. And I'm sorry it seems to you like we're talking all the time. We're not talking all the time. We can't talk until we get before the public,
No,
unfortunately.
what I mean by that is we've had a number of meetings, and we haven't come out of the meetings with any results.
Okay.
To a great extent. And again, I'm not trying to be negative about it. What the situation is just like he was talking earlier about going on his property. There's many people, including myself, that the second debris is gone, we're ready to move. But as a community, we're not ready to move. There's gonna be constant landmines if we don't get out in front of it. And with the discussion I'm hearing, we are not of an attitude to get out in front of it.
Right. We're going to take a quick break, 5-minute break, and then we're going to move to technology. Hopefully we can do technology within an hour, and then we'll be done. All right, we're going to move on to technology. And we have a couple cards of people who want to talk about that before. 3 people. We have 3 cards, and anyone else who wants to can raise their hand or maybe give us a card so that way it'll be easier to keep you in the right order. Luis, you're first. And we're good.
Yeah, come on.
And we're going to try to knock. We have 1 hour to knock this out.
Okay. So I sent you guys a presentation. I thought that I would have something to present, so I will repeat this again at City Council with the projector, so it's recorded. But basically, so I'm going to talk about technology and process. It's kind of my thing with the city. Like, I love Malibu, I love working here. I'm an architect, and I think that we have the best staff amongst all the jurisdictions that I work at, which is not only here, LA City, LA County. Also, I have a project in Michigan. Here, it's the best people on the smartest. But the systems that we have are bad. And something that we've been inheriting, like over time, is not the career management's fault, but it's our responsibility as citizens to come here and tell you about it. And then it's up to you, but then we will be able to tell you, I told you so in the future, right? So, to make it more graphic, we are all on the same boat. This is Titanic. There's a hole, okay? But the people on the top don't see it. but I go down there to the trenches and I see the hole. I saw the hole, I don't know, at the beginning I thought that it was normal, that it would be this slow, but even more and more being involving myself, I used to work with excavators, now I do everything on my own, and I ask the questions, and the staff knows how painful I can be sometimes, right? Because I like to ask a lot of questions, and why do I have to do this? Why my client has to pay that? Why do I need to sign an affidavit for everything? So we have a hole, and the hole comes from the lack of bad technology and deficient processes, and the management is more focused on getting the staff with buckets, removing water, instead of sending someone outside and patching the hole, okay? So it's time to patch the hole right now. And I'm gonna start my presentation. So the problem, the city of Malibu is known for how necessarily difficult it is to process permits through its planning and building safety departments. It is not the staff's fault, but the inherited deficient processes and lack of proper technology and a unified ecosystem. The departments have been especially overwhelmed since Bruce Fire and COVID, and this is only going to get worse for the next 5 to 10 years if nothing changes. A profound improvement needs to be prioritized right now. Now is the time. And Joe is talking about this, so sorry in advance. So Team B, I'm part of also the Malibu Rebuilds Task Force. I sent this presentation to them last night, so it's more me speaking, but it's part of them, so there's things that we have all discussed, other things that come from me. The team view is to adopt EPIC-LA and collaborate with different platforms, which ArchiStar is one, and I will explain a little bit about it, and then NewArc, the one that I've been developing also. So considerations, EPIC-LA is a digital ecosystem that provides visibility for the owners, departmental updates, automated notifications, removal of redundant steps between applicants and staff, and a centralized document location and more. Right now, the way it works, there's a development portal. You have to ask for permission to be able to upload something. That permission comes to a person behind the desk that may or may not read your emails. So you maybe lose. I just waited now 4 weeks to upload my building and safety document that I had ready a month ago. With EPIC-LA.
Say that again.
Wow.
It's taken me 4 weeks to upload building and safety document.
And the reason is why?
The reason is I sent the request and it got lost in the shuffle.
You have to request the fact that you want to send stuff up.
Yes.
It depends on the size of the file, that was a problem, they fixed that.
Not about the size of the file.
Well,
No.
that's the trouble.
I didn't even have permission to upload any file.
Okay, I'm sorry, keep
Okay.
going, yeah.
And there's more details, so
Yes, yeah.
ArchiStar, which you are gonna start hearing about this term more and more, is an artificial intelligence powered fast track tool which allows you to instantly check your architectural drawings against planning and building rules prior to the official submission. It is like a pre-approval. It helps fast tracking permits using AI. Okay, so Kevin is gonna be smiling and be happy that I'm mentioning AI. And then NewArc is just a publicly available topography and assessors data automated tool that I have developed that enables applicants and architects to save time and initiate the design and planning phase submission processes without the initial need of a topographic survey, which will be required in the budget. So this comes from official data, and that obviously has to be double checked later, but it's good enough to get the process going. So the requested actions to the CS staff. Determine which actions, staff hours, budget, and feedback from the public will be required to adopt EPIC-LA. Planning department to open communications with ArchiStar, Malibu Rebuilds.org, and NewArc representatives to certify, that the tools follow the MMC and IP codes and policies. Council members, direct the staff to agendize the adoption of EPIC-LA as the main digital ecosystem and the collaboration with ArchiStar, NewArc, and MalibuFire.org, and probably, I think that these guys also have a cool platform, as support platforms to help expedite the permitting processes and provide transparency to the citizens. And then residents, please register into all these platforms. Please use the NewArc data and pay attention to the upcoming updates about ArchiStar and EPIC-LA. Also, the Westlake Village, they just adopted EPIC-LA 2 days ago. Why they can't? We have to use EPIC-LA. with the fire department already, like, there's no way around it. With the Water Works District 29 too, for the debris removal too. Even Lauren likes it because
Well, just for information on our stuff.
We need an electronic permitting system for sure.
Okay.
Nobody's gonna disagree with that.
I sat through the demo of ArtStar. Okay, I think
Well,
that,
ArtStar, yeah.
I think it's pretty neat, all
But
right?
I'm talking about Epic right now.
Okay, I'm sorry, let me go.
You guys need to approve ArcStar is.
Let Steve talk.
No, I'm sorry, you finish up, you're more important than I am, go ahead.
And then I have a
Thank
bunch of slides here for Epic, so it doesn't bite. Like, and it's a new system that you have to get familiarized with. It has a welcome page, and you go through, and then you have your dashboard. Something similar to what we have right now, but I was showing here a bunch of slides of how you actually apply. It takes you 2 minutes. Like, instead of typing the address, you type it, but then automatically associates with APN. Then, if you have had other projects before, your username is there as an owner, as an applicant, as a geologist. And then when you are submitting your projects, you already upload your files. You don't need to wait for anyone to give you permission, right? I also wanted to talk about, also you can search. There's all the public data tools, so you have your permit number, you search and you know what's going on. And each project has a dashboard that shows all the information that is relevant. It shows when things are submitted. Because this is the thing, right? When we architects complain that the process is slow, then staff goes and says, well, your architects are slow, or they didn't submit the stuff on time. Here's it's there,
You get a dashboard of what the heck's going on, I hear you.
That's why also Chief Nick Duvalli loves it, because he says, no, when architects complain about the fire department being slow, you can go there, and the owner can go there and see when the architect submitted the files. And all those files are there, and you know when were submitted. And then the reviewer has to say, I received this, and now my clock starts of 30 days. I have an example here with GMET, which is from LA County. They told me that it would take them a month, it took them 2 months. It's fine, but this is there. So when the owner comes to me and said, look, they said 1 month, there was a fire, it took 2 months, it's all good. But at least there's not this constant chasing each other, excuses, lack of transparency, and lack of hope. If we adopt something like this that removes a bunch of unnecessary steps that we already have in this very complex situation, we will be helping. It requires some effort, some time, some staff. That's why I'm begging you guys to request the management to tell you really how long it would take, or ask the people from Westlake Village how long it took.
How long do they think, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's
Go
okay.
ahead, no.
I mean, I learned about it, I went today with a Woolsey applicant to the fire department where they used Epic LA. And then it said Westlake Village now proud to use Epic LA. I sent you guys, I sent the picture out. And then after that, I was fortunate enough to have a little tutorial for an hour with Patricia and Tracy with our dashboard, which I was really impressed by. You know, I think they explained that it was at the Rebuild Center. They explained it was a placeholder. And so I think, like, between now, I think it does a good job, and it's a really...
I disagree.
Yeah, I haven't actually had to use it, right? But when I had the tutorial, it was nice. It was something more than I thought it was, right? But that doesn't mean that we don't have room to improve, or we don't have room to like look at all these other technologies and programs. It was nice to see though that we have a dashboard, at least right now, and I've been looking into all of these different modalities, and so it's really exciting. Thank you for bringing this.
I wanted to talk about briefly, like, I wish I had the presentation to you, so you know what? I'm gonna be nice to everyone else and shut up right now, but ArchiStar is really cool because basically you as an architect, you have your drawing set and you drag it to this website and it automatically, with large language models, reads the code and then gives you a pre-check. So when you submit, so right now, let's say if the planning department helps ArchiStar to be integrated with Malibu, there's no excuse to architects to get plan check correction. You submit once, and that's it. This is good for the applicants for 2 reasons.
Yeah.
1, they spend less money in fees. 2, it's faster. So
It was an impressive demo, and basically what it is, when you submit your plan, the software automatically goes back and it compares that to whatever the codes are, whatever your prior development was. I mean, so it was pretty neat. Now, I mean, it's new software, so I offered, when we go back, I sent an email, after I saw the demo, I sent an email to Maureen, all right, and she said she's scheduled to get a demo of the product, and I told her I'd be more than happy if they'd like. I'll make some phone calls to some of the cities who are currently using this product to get some testimonials, find out, I mean, there's a new software, you got issues of what your customer support's gonna look like, how fast can I fix stuff?
That's what I worry about.
Yeah, and so I was more than happy to chase all that stuff down for him, so.
Go ahead, sir.
I'm sorry, and, because I think if we could, if that product works as well as they say it does, it could be one hell of a change agent here in Malibu. I mean.
Can you explain a
Hold on a
little?
minute.
Yeah.
This is the one that you and I demoed
This is,
together?
and it's an Australian company that Amazon, I
Right.
guess, is unrolling. I'll explain a little bit.
Okay, now I understand what it is. It's machine learned plan checking.
Right.
It's an AI program.
So they
that
learn
does it.
Machine learned
And
plan
we're
checking.
gonna, so we've been doing this a little different than normal city council meetings. I know we normally just keep taking comment and then we talk, but we've been more iterative here. I want us to talk about this a little bit before we get to the other comments. So let's have a conversation about this, because we've all demoed it. Luis has demoed it, some of the staff have looked at it, and I think there's some discussion that's worth having, and I want to include you in this conversation too, Joe, okay? So, go ahead.
I worry it's Australian. I worry about their IT. I worry about being the first, you know, I didn't run out and get the iPhone. I held on to my BlackBerry. I was
I had mine
like,
till 2 years ago.
yeah, I would still have mine with the track wheel, but I'm always a little afraid of doing that. But that shouldn't trump the idea of innovating and iterating.
It's optional.
Right, it's also optional.
Yeah,
That's
the city
right.
doesn't need to implement it, but it's
Right.
a tool. If you want to use it, you
That's
use
right.
it and you'll be faster. The same with Newark, the same with Malibu Rebuilder, or it's
Right.
just tools to help.
And when I did the demo, when I saw the demo and talked to the representative with Halen, I mean, I'm a hard target. I'm very skeptical.
Yeah.
And I was impressed. I mean, I was very impressed. And I was also very impressed, if I understood correctly, and maybe you understood it better, Amazon or someone is looking to fund it for us. I mean,
It's free for us.
Yeah, I mean, they're not
from
looking
what
to
I
sell us a
understand.
product. They're looking to use us as a beta.
Well, they got somebody on
and
the
to-
front end who's paying for the implementation.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a pay per go as you get going, but
$200 for the applicant to
Right.
work with the architect, as far as I know, unless something has changed. And so it's upfront, you guys pay for it together, but they need to learn our municipal code and our.
But they normally charge to
Right.
learn that, and they're offering to have that funded, is my understanding.
That's why
So
I
it's-
offer myself to help them get a liaison
Well,
with the city.
what they were doing is they're taking they're importing the building code, and they're doing it for LA, for Passage. I mean, they're saying it's gonna be the same for everybody, so they're getting that already built into the system.
So, Joe, we had submitted, Helen and I submitted this to Joe. And we totally get, again, that you guys are stretched. And, you know, don't expect you to look at every single new product that comes out and
Shiny things.
yeah, figure it out. But have you had a chance to look at it yet, or had others under you look at it?
Yeah, our team's looked at it a little bit, and I'm always impressed with AI, any technology. In fact, that's one of my favorite things to do, is look at ways we can improve our operations. With that one, I would be a little more skeptical, not to diminish anything Luis is saying. You know, there's a sales team that'll promise you the world, so you know you have to be mindful of that. And it's usually, and from what we've seen, it's not as simple as what they've suggested so far. It's also, they haven't had any California city. It's actually only Australia and Austin.
Canada.
Australia, Canada, and Austin, Texas. So
Right.
they actually haven't had any coastal cities. They haven't done anything. And so what we know is it's a little more complicated than just here's, you know, very straight municipal code to apply that it's going to do checks against. We would know there would still be other steps. So it's a little more complicated than they've made it appear on first blush. And there's always resources. They still need our team to help implement. There's still resources with that. Something, though, that is interesting, I think, was Luis's beta idea, where at least that's an add-on. The thing that you had was what browser-based, where it's a resource. That's something that's very simple that can be added to our existing data.
So let me ask this, what's our next step with this ArtStar product then?
I say,
What are the next step for the city? What is the city gonna do next in dealing with that?
I think that's up to us.
Well, no, it's up to
Wait
the.
till we all talk, we have some.
And I keep seeing shaking of heads that I want to hear as well.
Okay, but I'd like to see what next steps are gonna be, because, look, if we don't start, we're never gonna get there. And if this thing works, it solves the problems with speeding up the approval of projects. It helps solve the problem of getting staff, okay? I mean, there are a bunch of goodies we get if this thing actually works as well as they see it did. And there's gotta be a way for us to figure that out, and we ought to do that.
I'm interested in a much more simple thing than a lot of other people are focused on. And maybe I'm just being too simplistic. We have this, I meant to ask before, by the way, when I asked how many people lost their homes, how many of those who've lost their homes are going to build back like for like as opposed to something more complex? Okay. That's what I thought. And there's two steps at the very beginning to like for like, and they're the most important ones in my view. And what was there, and what are you going to do? And they have to be relatively the same. The what was there has been a big holdup, I understand, for a lot of projects in the past because of a lack of data. And these types of products, to me, solve the equation of what was there instantly. Forget that they don't necessarily know what the code is and the code's complex. They give us instantly, technologically, what was there. And if we were to endorse a software product or multiple software products, but something which is on a computer, which applies to every single property in Malibu, we don't need to rely on an architect to say this is what was there. We don't need to rely on engineers to say this is what was there. We don't need to rely on the owner of the home. The staff doesn't have to figure it out. It either matches the technology or it doesn't. Technology proves it. And once that's your PV. Once you've got your PV, we still need to solve for the building issues. But I'm looking for something really simple up front to give us what was there, because we've had disputes over what was there, and data doesn't lie. And this is data. This is not being manipulated. This is being triangulated, or I don't know what the algorithms are, but this is data-driven information about what was on these properties that are now empty, many of which don't have plans. So I'm looking for, let's find ways, I've been advocating this from the beginning, let's find ways to give the staff a list of things you must rely on that will demonstrate what was there. Then determining whether what is going to be put there is the same as what was there ought to be pretty easy to do, separate and apart from the building issues.
And I think you asked, are we able to use that part of the software without adopting the other part of the software? And they said yes.
Yeah, and even Luis's, I think, gets you there, just to a large extent. So I really welcome an opportunity for us to solidify in a policy, this is the policy manual thing, to say, these are the products that the staff must accept as viably showing what was there, so that we've got the first step of the like for like nailed down. And then it's just a question of putting your plan on top of the plan that was there, and it either matches or it doesn't match. Is this overly simplistic? Am I missing something that's like major? Marissa,
I do
want.
Yeah, go ahead. From you guys also, because I see eyebrows and head shaking. I want to make sure we talk.
I think proving what was there before is like in computers you have hardware and software. So you have to check both. One thing is the existing envelope, and the other thing is how much money the original owner was paying taxes based on which square footage. So that data, the software, you access that from LA County Tax Assessor. Yes.
What was on the records doesn't matter. It either, because those records could be wrong. The way we're doing things now is you get back what you had. If you were overpaying, you're not going to get the bigger property you overpaid for. If you were underpaying, you're not going to be penalized and get a smaller property. You're getting back what you had.
The problem that planning has with that is that they don't have a way to demonstrate if it was illegal.
Doesn't matter. We've crossed that bridge. Didn't we cross that bridge? We said it doesn't matter. You're getting back what you had, whether it was permitted or not permitted.
Conforming, non-conforming, we talked
I don't
about
think we've established
unpermitted structures?
Yeah.
I think it's not conforming, but I think it's non-legal.
Yeah, I remember when Trevor explained it to me, he was sitting here. Tyler. And then we talked about sheds and other,
We would
buildings
need to
on the
make
property.
changes to our code if we're gonna allow illegally built structures to be rebuilt. So that would be something we'd have to come back to.
It's coming back to the council.
That's one of the policy.
The policy
items,
is
I think,
coming
that's
back, so we'll
coming
decide
back
that.
too. And on this, you know, in terms of what materials are used to determine what was there before, you may want to have staff report to you. They've had a pretty complex way about what they use and the materials that were most valuable when they went through Woolsey, and maybe they can report that to you and you can see if you agree, if there's things that are missing to add on to it, but I would suggest starting with that to not reinvent the wheel.
Well, I want to say, I feel that this is an unusual, unique, terrible situation, and the governor's order, I think, already gives us cover. If we need to make changes, we need to make changes, but I understood whatever you had physically in the real world, forget what's on paper, forget whether you can demonstrate it or not on paper, whatever you had in the real world the day before the fire, but for the fire, you had it the day after the fire. And our objective is to let you have back what you had the day before the fire. Now, one can argue about whether after that you can still be subject to an enforcement action because you had something you shouldn't have had. Because if there had been no fire, you still would have been subject to that if your house was there. But if you want to recreate what you had, whether you had a permit or not, you ought to be able to put back what was there.
Is that right, Trevor?
It's not how our code currently reads. If you guys want to make changes to allow this to happen, it would be okay under the governor's order. The governor's order does not make a determination about whether a structure is legal or illegal. It just says you don't need a coastal development.
We're off topic, guys. We're off topic.
No, we're not off topic.
Yeah, we are off topic. The issue is, what software can we use? What technology is available out there to help us get something done? And at least my perspective is, this ArcStar stuff, if it works, okay, there's still, debate. We can get testimonials from the people that are using it. I mean, flat land in Austin, Texas is different than building on the hills of Malibu, okay? But it looked good, all right? And if it starts off by saying, the first thing it does is give us the ability to get a picture of what was there before and compare it to what, that's a step in the right direction. I don't care what they're using today. This thing can do it automatically. It's faster than whatever staff is doing by hand today. And if it can do the next step, which says I can actually compare these plans against the code and come up with some, and let's assume it's only correct 75% of the time. I've still made everybody's life a lot easier than what they're doing right now. So technology works. We just got to have the initiative to go out and get it. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So if Luis has more to say, well, let's come back at the end if we still have time. Let's move to the next person on the list, which is Brian.
Yeah, technology is it. This is it.
Yeah, Brian.
Real quick, I would say definitely technology, embrace it. AI, if we can do what he's talking about, definitely. I had to use Epic LA to do I'd never used it before, I had to do my debris removal. It was difficult the very first time I went there, but after that, it was all pretty easy, and it was like you got full information, the contractor's there, anyone else you want to put is there, so that system worked pretty good. So I don't believe Malibu has any system like that. And only as a frame of reference, I would say that I took my insurance policy, ran it through like ChatGPT, and they came back with what my deficiencies were. So they do this kind of stuff.
Right.
Great.
Thank you. Kevin.
Thank you. Council members and neighbors, I am Kevin Keegan. Over the past few weeks in our local newspaper, the Malibu Times, Ben Marcus has been reporting on a vision for how in the coming months Malibu can make practical, cost-effective, and impactful changes to leverage existing and emerging technologies as we rebuild our city for the benefit of our residents and our community. I offer many Malibu-specific ideas in Ben's future newspaper series, including a Malibu Technology Library, a Malibu app, a Malibu Artificial Intelligence Task Force, and much more. The response to Ben's articles has been overwhelming. I have been fielding daily emails, text messages, and phone calls from residents, neighbors, parents, and friends asking, when can Malibu get started with what you are proposing? That includes, 1, adopting a technology mindset, as we've been discussing, and 2, beginning to establish a technology foundation for our city. Today, you are hearing about a few examples of practical technology solutions to help Malibu in our rebuild effort, As I described in Benjamin's newspaper article series, what Luis Tena is proposing today should be assessed by the city for its cost benefits and implementation feasibility. I am advocating for a formal consulting role to help lead a technology strategy that many residents and community members believe is needed. I will appreciate serious consideration of my vision and the community's proposals. Let's make today the start of an ongoing conversation to benefit Malibu and take the onus off of some of the staff as we've been discussing. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Kevin. Marissa?
Yeah, before I answer all these, because I have an answer for them. Under the county, prior to cityhood, since I'm so much older than the rest of you, I can tell you, when you were issued a building permit, all of it showed, the only thing it showed on the permit was a house in your garage. You can have anything on that property. You can have a corral, a hay barn, a second unit, everything, but it would only show under the permit of a house and a thing. So when the city had to relieve itself of the storage of all of the original plans, I started coming and getting plans that I didn't keep in my home and scanning them. And a lot of our plans, we had a lot of those plans here and they were destroyed. So whatever you do in the future, flash drive it, because I have clients who just lost their house and I just put their plans in flash drive. This is the reason I wanted to speak to you. Hang on just a second. Come on. Oh, sorry. I just lost this thing here. Hang on. I got it. Open.
Marissa, we have some AI that can read that.
No, I put my finger and I closed the window.
He's paperless too.
Oh, hang on. Oh, shoot. Maybe you go and I'll pull my page back up again.
Okay, we'll come back to you. Scott?
Oh, no, I got it. Okay, I got so excited. I was at the Safer Cities Conference a while back, and I had the pleasure of meeting this gentleman, and also our building official was a speaker with this gentleman, and she was terrific, Yolanda Bundy. This gentleman is Jonathan Glassman. He's a data sciences principal engineer. He has 4 licenses. His credentials, I'll have to tell you, I mean, it's so long, but he works on data, what works, what doesn't work, programs, how to create them, how to do it. He does everything these people are interested in and are concerned about. He's got expertise in structural and civil engineering. He's a lecturer at UCLA. He's a reliable engineering. He has software development, data analytics, and emergency management, and he worked for Exponent. And I can share all his credentials with you, with everybody, but I would like the council to invite him, I think it will come, and speak, devote a session to him, or at least a majority of the council hearing to him, and let him explain to you. He can answer all these questions, and he can tell you about all those programs, because that's what he does. He's part of the national strike team also, like when the World Trade Center went down, he took his structural and civil and data expertise to tell them why they collapsed and how they collapsed, everything. The man is a national strike force member. I mean, he was so impressive. That's why I had to sort of go back and get my relationship with him. So I think he would be really critical. He can answer so many questions that everybody has.
His specialty is machine learning.
Do you know him, Lauren?
That's what he calls it.
I worked with him at Exponent for a year.
Oh,
And then I found out that he and
Send me his contact. I reach out to people all day, every day. It's almost like what I do.
Just Energizer Bunny.
Yeah, I love this stuff. I learn.
This is what his specialty is, and he's offered to come give a CLE course for free.
Interesting.
I mean,
Just to tell you what he
Amazing.
knows and what he's worked on
Right.
the utility side of things.
That's good, thanks. I didn't know that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Send me his contact.
Yeah, I'll give it to clerk and she can
Okay.
Thank
give it
you.
to everybody.
Scott?
Thank you. I'm not a geotechnical engineer, I'm not an architect, but I understand statistical analysis and probability. That's what my training was in economics. We had on the task force, Mountain Rebuild Task Force, figuring 40 to 50% of residents would rebuild like for like. That's a flexible number. I just heard, I don't know if it's correct, they're figuring 20% in the Palisades will rebuild.
Really? 20?
Yeah. Malibu citizens were more rugged individualists. We like our community, and we're gonna have a higher percentage, but what we do, what the council decides, is going to determine that percentage. Is it on the low side, is it on the high side? And our goals are clearly all the same. We want to get this rebuilt as fast as possible. But a lot of people, of course, are discouraged that, but we're at 150 homes from Woolsey, completed now, roughly. And some of them are going to go to heck with it, I'll take my insurance money and run. And so all the decisions made are going to determine how many people stay. If they find it's easy, they're going to tend to stay, vice versa. And I say that because I know, you know, the gravity of this. Somehow, every decision we need to make has got to ask, how is this going to impact the speed at which houses get built, and going to impact the cost? I figured, looking at Big Rock, because we lost, you know, almost 200 homes there. You got 2,500 square foot house. If you have to switch from a slab, a new slab, to caissons, you're going to increase the cost by $500,000. And it's suddenly going to become unaffordable.
Minimum.
Minimum.
Yeah, minimum, okay, I'm getting this. And that's got to be the overriding determinant of all the decisions you guys make. And so whatever we can do. And the thing is, I know you guys are trying, the Brown Act inhibits us from being able to act. Little forums like this are really good as you hear from the community and actually get to talk. So I want to encourage us to do that. If we need, for example, we want to have a rebuild category, and Warren was just saying, maybe even if we call them remodels, it doesn't help us that much here technically. If we need help in that area, let's go back to the governor and send Alan and Jackie and Lindsay Horvath and see if we can really get things moving, because the longer delays, the more people are going to decide not to come back.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
I just wanted to clarify, it wasn't geotechnical, it was structural. We just said remodels still have to be code conforming.
Right. I think these guys over here got a presentation.
Austin?
That's me on the last one, maybe, I don't know. Just wanted to be last. This is a really cool conversation, by the way, that you all hear so much. People are going to change the city forever. And I think that Malibu can actually be a shining example for the rest of our country, frankly, and how we just want to be one of the worst natural disasters in history and bounce back by saying, by banding together all of our expertise and technology, we can make more folks go back home in a faster time period. I'm Austin, by the way. This is Zach and David on my team. We're Build Back LA. You might have seen us in some meetings. I'm normally the guy that's asking the Army when they're going to tell us how much the Army debris removal costs. I'm also aware, I went to USC for law school. I'm a young lawyer, albeit, but I care a lot about these issues. I actually ran for city council when I was a senior in college, back when I didn't win, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Back in Ohio, when I applied. And so I'm like very well versed in how awesome these meetings are with all the personalities, and this is where the real work gets done. Like, this is the stuff that matters, so people boots on the ground. We've had to build back LA as the fires were hitting. My second family lost their home in the Palisades. That was my first home when I lived here in Los Angeles. I've lived in Malibu for a brief period of time. I care very deeply about our communities here. And I knew that the most difficult part would be building back, based off time, money, and speed, and not having the right information. And so we all banded together. Zach's from the Erica family who's lived here in Malibu for 15 years. His family got it at Equinox, the gym, very successful family. David's been a builder here, and I'm a lawyer. By coming together, Zach's also a builder as well. We knew that we could form a technology partnership to get an app together for homeowners to be able to build back with all the resources they need, completely free to the homeowners. So what does that mean? To your point, the whole goal is, our motto is no one has to build back alone. And we want to make sure that everyone can get back home as quickly as possible with the highest quality at the lowest cost. How do you do that? It's not just permitting, it's also a lot more than that, right? As a young lawyer, I can tell a lot of people are asking me, can you read my policy and let me know how much money I get out of this thing? And there's a lot of clauses that are confusing, and the way that you build actually incurs certain costs, and you get certain insurance from it. You should probably hire a public adjuster if you haven't, to try to get as much capital from your insurance company as possible, right? Legal claims. There are a diverse set of legal claims. There actually are some that are popping up now for the Palisades fire, and I'm helping the lawyers advise on that because I'm boots on the ground here, and so I'm helping them work on that. There's also the Altadena, obviously, fires over there as well. So those are two aspects of capital, but there's also SBA funding. I just got word from my contact at the SBA that they just extended it by 60 days. Now you can apply for that if you haven't. I just want to let you guys know that because it's important. If you haven't done it yet, please just put your name in the hat so you have that funding. All of that coming together in one place can be really confusing. But what AI can do is help to be that sort of personal assistant. We call ours Billy. She's already live. We've already built her. We did this in 2 months, by the way. And so to your point of how long does it take to get build the codes, I can do that literally in a weekend. I did with my team and my engineer. And by the way, our second Zach got his master's degree in AI/ML from Berkeley. So this is an entire California team. We're all local. We all care. We're all from here. And we decided to put all this stuff together. What's important is, what are your data sources? And I can tell you also what's important is having lawyers working with engineers to read the codes and make sure that AI is interpreting as well. I like Archistar, and we just requested access to their APIs. We're going to be plugging that into our platform. So regardless if we work with the city directly, and I'd love to, we're going to be plugging them in anyway. As well as I'd love to check out your piece of technology. I believe that collaboration is most important because I am not a geotechnical engineer, and half the words you guys say, I have no idea what you're talking about. But I can read codes. I'm a lawyer, right? Also, I've built 4 different tech platforms. I'm a 4-time tech founder. And so all of this coming together is going to change a lot, but also if there's one thing I can stress as somebody who's built 4 tech platforms, everyone loves vision, everyone loves creating that idea, people do not like implementing it. It sucks. Let me tell you that right now. So who's going to be the guy that's going to determine what those data sources are? Who's going to be the guy that's actually going to implement Epic LA at the city of Malibu level? Because by the way, Epic LA is great, but it's great for like 2015. That thing is still very outdated. Like, we could build something better in 3 weeks. That's not my job. For sure, for sure. So the point is, implementation is going to take a team, and it's also going to take a team of experts because we cannot get this wrong. Because AI hallucinates all day long. I asked AI to give me a list of the 10 top documentaries in AI yesterday, and it made up 3 of them. And I had to tell Chat, hey, these 3 aren't real. She went, oh yeah, I'm so sorry. Right? We can't have to deal with the codes. So we need to make sure that also we have engineers and lawyers working together, and I mean both software and also geotechnical and other engineers working together to ensure that the implementation works well. And then I think the most important thing is to realize that we can do a lot of this, nobody uses it, who cares? We waste a lot of time and probably a lot of money. So let's make sure we're building something that is human-like, but relies off the best technology. So AI/ML is just technology. It's only as good as the data it lives off of. And so I think that if we care about being human first, which also means expert first, and making something that's beautiful like the app that we built as a team is ultimately meant to just be there as a support engine for homeowners, to have every single piece laid out together, and then integrate with what are called APIs, basically bridges to other pieces of technology across the internet. So that way, if we plug into the city of Malibu, anything that the homeowner gets pre-approved through our app can be sent over immediately. And then we're going to have to figure out how Epic LA or other systems will work on the city of Malibu side to actually make sure that your jobs are being done better. Because at the end of the day, it's still your system and you have to run it. And also, you need to hire somebody to now be that head of AI that's a part of the city of Malibu, probably. I'm not sure who. Maybe it's you. I don't know. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I think that it's something that the city should take very seriously. I would hate to see this conversation get really exciting today and forgotten about in a couple weeks. You have people that care a ton. my team, the other people in this room, like, we will go build this for you, and we're also doing this across LA, we're doing this in Altadena, and then we want to take this across the country and say, hey, out of the fires of Malibu, we built the best natural disaster recovery app, and also local cities can follow Malibu's example.
You tell us
That's
what you
what's
got.
exciting. So,
I'm trying to figure out what you got.
What I got?
What does the software do that you're building?
So it's a whole dashboard for homeowners that they can get their legal claim, their insurance claim, design and planning done, all of that, check it against local codes, and then send it over to the city with compliance check already done. So essentially, pieces of what you already want. Now, we haven't built the city side, so that's where like I keep forgetting the name, Arcostar would work, but we were thinking about just building it out. Because we're also chatting with LA County, we're chatting with LA City, and we were like, hey, we could also go build that. Some of these are pieces that are preset, or it's where you take their open source software and you plug it under yours. And then we sit on top as that interface that makes it easier. So basically the organization.
So this is a piece of software that goes to the homeowner.
Correct, yeah. But then it has to interface with the city as well. I
Just like dumb it down a tiny bit for me here.
Yeah.
My house burned and I'm devastated. What do I do? What do I do?
You go to the Build Back LA app, or
Build Back
Build Back Malibu app. Billy is your assistant, and Billy's gonna walk you through every single step you need to get done.
And I say,
So the
Billy,
first
what's
is-
my first step?
So the first step would be, hey, have you filed your insurance claim? Well, the first step really is, are you okay? But we're several months out, right?
Okay.
Let's make sure you have the money to rebuild.
Okay.
That's first, right?
Okay.
All right, you're probably gonna have to hire a public adjuster to fight for more money. That's what I would recommend as a lawyer. Is there a legal claim that's in place? Sure. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. Well, we have that in our data resources. Next, how do you want to design and build back? If you want to design and build back.
Like for
You want
like.
to do like for like?
Yeah.
Not like for like. What does like for like mean for you? You know, how are we checking against all the local codes and ordinances? Do you want to make any other changes? Who do you want to hire as your builder? Who do you want to hire as your architect? Who do you want to hire? All these questions that homeowners right now are coming to us and saying, I don't even know where to find this information besides if I ask my neighbor or if I Google it. And
Right.
Google is not doing a good job for me right now.
Right.
And so we're coming to meetings like these. So we literally just, it's almost like an expediter in an app. One dashboard that you can go to and get everything.
Yeah, to simplify it, I'm helping on product strategy, and I'm a GC, and I've done multiple projects here, so I was explaining to them, and I'm
Yeah,
from
can
here.
you show it to us?
Yeah.
Thanks.
And again, this is literally what we've built in the past
So
couple of
this
weeks.
is what Malibu would have if we
Yeah.
were to say.
And it doesn't have to be a city partnership. Like I want all 7 homeowners to
You-
have
We don't even
the
have to partner
dashboard.
with you, you just sell it to the
We don't sell
residents.
it, it's.
Yeah, it's free. It's free to homeowners. Yeah,
Where do you make your money?
just vendors pay to be part of the network, and that's a very industry standard.
Who pays?
The vendors.
Vendors.
Yeah.
So the
So a builder, an architect.
Oh,
whoever else.
so they're advertising on here.
So, how do I sign up?
What do you guys enjoy?
I've got cards.
I mean, there's laws, right?
Right.
Here's, you know this, Trevor, you know this, they just adopted a whole bunch, there's like, what, 13 AI laws right now that just got enacted with data privacy, entertainment, healthcare industry, and I think there's another 2 that are coming into effect January 1st, 2026, that have to do with data validation, proving your model works. That's what the state is gonna
So
require.
training is massively important. Like someone's gonna have to sit down and be doing constant testing on whatever AI you use.
Right,
It probably
they
needs to be a
constant
lawyer
data
and-
validation, right, and these are the types of things, I mean, I happened to talk to Jonathan, a week or 2 ago, he just had a new baby, so I was congratulating him. But, these are the same types of issues, so I think you need experts to come inform the city
And which means
on many different aspects.
there needs to be somebody
including
shadowing the planning department, correct me if I'm wrong.
Shadowing?
Like basically helping them, helping you guys implement our codes.
If it's
to
us,
make
sure, but if it's not us, if it's Arcostar.
Arcostar, is
Yeah.
that the is that a problem?
It takes 1 year to implement it typically in cities, but we want to go an expedited version for Malibu.
Does that mean
Needs to be
safety
checked,
expedited is scary?
validated.
So the other problem we have, and it's not unique to Malibu, but we have this problem in Malibu. Anyone who watched the last city council meeting saw that we don't agree on what the law is.
Right.
I mean, our law is very gray. The law actually, in most places, when you're an expert and you drill down on it, is very gray. And it depends on what your predilections are on how you're going to interpret it. And I'm kind of schizophrenic right now because I want to interpret it very liberally for the rebuilds, and I want to interpret it very conservatively for the rest of Malibu, as we've been doing, because life goes on in Malibu. It's still a rural community, and we want to keep it that way. And life needs to go back to being what it was for all of us who lost their homes. So, but I don't want to rely on outsiders to decide what our laws mean. Even the best lawyers, because they need to come in here with the right mindset.
Did you have something?
Yeah, something we were touching on earlier, Epic LA, it's actually Tyler Munis is the background. They're the behemoth in the local government world. And it is, no matter what sales teams promise you, and no, that's good. No matter what sales teams promise you, there is and to Austin's point, implementation is the hardest part.
Right.
And for a system, even if it's older, like Epic LA or Tyler Munis, it takes your staff to be a focused Tiger team to do that, and it can take years to do it. Ideally a year, ideally less, but it's difficult, and that's why we've had it on our strategic priority. And actually, our goal was to be kicked off this year.
Yeah.
Something happened, and those people that are supposed to be, our teams that are supposed to be now working on tech implementation, there's no way we can parse that. And so you can't just take consultants to do your implementation, because you have to have the expertise of the staff involved. I want us to get there, and we all want to get there, but I do want to manage those expectations that we have to have those same staff members working on that implementation and partnership with the team. Consultants can't just come in and do it.
That's what I meant by shadowing, I guess. It's like there's work in the implementation.
Okay, well, look, the question is, are we going to do anything? I mean, I can give you 20 reasons why you can't do anything, all right? I mean, one of my pitches when I was in business, for a handful of $1 bills, I can fill a room with people to tell me I can't get it done. Easy to do, all right? Question is, what are we going to do? At least in my opinion, I looked at this ArchStar stuff, and I said, that's if it works, all right? And there's some ifs there. It has the potential of speeding up the approval process rapidly. It has the potential of relieving some of our demand for staff, because it can replace some of them. And it looks like the guys who are putting this together have got some they're doing something for LA too. I mean, they're working, so there's communities around us where it's working. They've got some, we ought to just find out, because if it works, okay? Now, and I understand we don't have staff to do that. Well, I'll tell you what, I just sent you 2 resumes. One was from a young lady who worked in Malibu as a planner years ago. She worked as a planner for Malibu. She worked for the Coastal Commission. She knows what the hell she's doing. I mean, if we had to hire her, put her on this project and say, you figure out, test it, make sure it works, make sure it's doing what we want it to do. There are ways to get stuff done, but you gotta want to do it. So I'm just saying, let's get off our ass and do something. I'm sorry.
And I appreciate that, Councilmember Euring. I think we all agree. There's still a balance of our resources and priorities, because to do any sort of streamlining, which we want to do as a city, you have to stop what you're doing to focus on it. And that's an important exercise to do, because you build bandwidth for future endeavors. But what we can't do right now is say, go do everything. And we have to be cognizant of what are we focusing on. And I'm really afraid to take staff off of all the focus work we're trying to do with the community right now to do an implementation that we have to test. And then maybe if that implementation doesn't work, or there's challenges.
I'm not saying we take our staff off anything they're doing. My recommendation is, I got this person, I just sent you a resume, talented, knows what the hell they're doing. If I hired her just to be the tester of this project, to go through and find out if it works, that's her job. Her whole job is work with ArchStar, make sure the code is being implemented correctly, take plans and run it against it, see how. So it may be a month, it may be 2 months. We end up having a report that says the stuff looks like it works and we should pursue it further, or it looks like it's a dud, let's go do something else. But we're smarter. Right now, I'm not, I want to get smarter.
See, I have this again, it's going to be overly simplistic, but or maybe more complicated. I have this vision, and this dovetails with the conversation we were having earlier today, that we have 2 different towns right now. And we need to stop using our main our staff and the processes we have in place for the second town that's been destroyed. We need to find, if it meant just hiring people that have nothing to do with anything else, and put them, and that's why I was not a fan of recreating what we did in Woolsey with this rebuild center. I want to just hire people that do nothing but focus on getting people back into their homes. Nothing but. But they would focus on the technology necessary. They would focus on the problems that those people are facing. Right. And they leave the staff alone to administer Malibu the way Malibu was built to be administered. And if we have a long-term plan for technology, we don't scrap that, and because we have this emergency, we continue to work down that line, and we continue to devote the resources we have towards that. But we've got this fire burning. It's not literally burning anymore, but the fire is burning, and we need a strike team to put it out that don't work with the others. They need to administer business as usual, but we also need to administer the emergency. And I want to find a way to get the right technology into the hands of the people that are administering that, to get the right people over there, and get out of the way.
Right.
Have our staff that is the staff that's there to keep people from overdoing it in Malibu, get out of the way of the people who need to get back into their houses. And, things like what these people are describing, what Louise is describing, what everyone's coming in with, are the things we need to be implementing somehow. Ideas are easy, implementation's hard.
I know, I said it. Do you have any ideas?
Well, yeah, I just had a quick thought. I think it's awesome, hire a whole team, but I think you're going to have to go through approvals. I don't know if you'll get the votes for that. If you want a public-private partnership that can make it happen, is those of us who are on the private side that want to make this work. And like I said, we don't need a city partnership to go sign up every homeowner and start using the app and listening to what they need and building exactly what they need. And then what's cool about large language models is they learn. And so they're training on data. We make sure that it's trained on the codes, so that way, once you get a permit that's sent to the city, we can start tracking the success rate of whether AI is actually pre-approving and saying, yeah, this seems like it'll get approved, and then once it comes over to the city is already working with models that are like our Parastar and all theirs. I don't know if that makes sense. I'm probably drilling down way too deep right now.
No, I'm just trying to figure out when I listen to you. I mean, I saw what you have,
yeah.
Okay? And to me, and I understand, I believe there is a need to educate the homeowners so they have at least some path to take if they got burnt out, right? They wouldn't, okay. But from the other side of the coin, and there's, your software, the other side of the coin that I'm focused on is I got 700 some odd homes we've got to rebuild. And the perception right now is the city moves like very slowly in getting that done. And we need to speed that up.
But you could speed it up on the private side, right? Just take out some of the guesswork, start using AI to get higher conforming plans and permits that are sent to
That's why I'm looking at this ArchStar.
Yeah.
When I looked at their
Exactly.
application, it seemed that was a solution to do
But
that.
that doesn't have to be implemented at the city level right away, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. We can all do it on the private side, start to prove out
So
the models work.
there's two forms of this implementation that we're talking about. One form is representing the city, and then we were talking about the planning taking over and essentially operating that. There's the other form of implementation, which is before we even submit. You're talking about a homeowner who doesn't know an architect, doesn't know you, doesn't know an expediter. Needs to call their friend and say, hey, who was that guy that built your house 10 years ago, and then who was his designer? We want to get involved with the homeowner then. Your house just burned down, do you have someone for insurance? We will connect you. Do you have an architect? Here's 3 proposals.
He's the one-stop shop on the.
And how do you pick those people?
They were all vetted through that.
But you can't recommend people, the city can't.
Yeah.
The city can't.
We're saying this is a private solution.
It's
Start-
option 2.
You start getting 700 people to build that faster, and then the city has a year or
That's
two
not
to
the
start
city
implementing
recommending.
this.
Say one thing about the doctor. This is feed right into it.
Say what?
Something about Dr. Glassman. Okay, Doctor,
Yeah.
are you gonna be like the guy on my other side?
I don't think anybody knew this was gonna, I didn't know this was gonna happen
Okay,
today.
I would have asked Dr. Glassman, I didn't know until last night either. Dr. Glassman is a member of FEMA Urban Search and Rescue. He's a cross-trained resource in field-tested expertise responding to catastrophic incidents that overwhelm local, regional, and state resources and cities, in government. His technical specialties include structural collapse response, data analytics, communication, mission planning, and strategy. He's trained to work in accordance with the National Incident Management Incident Command System. He's a strike responder. He knows how every element of everything we've discussed today. I really would encourage you, before you, I mean, I'm not saying don't consider anything anybody's saying, let him come and speak to you. He knows everything they all know plus more. And I think he would be a good resource to come to the council. You can ask him any questions.
Well, here's what I don't have a problem with that. What I would like to do when we finish today is, look, we've got at least 2 or 3 products on. I would like to see if there's a plan to say, what do we do next? Because if we don't, if we walk out here and do nothing, nothing's going to happen.
Okay, I have a good idea.
This is
Let's
what
do
he
a
does.
task force or an ad hoc with the tech, and then you guys do all this exploring, because our bandwidth is really like, and then talk to Glassman.
No,
And-
Glassman needs to come to the council.
And a test, and a demo, and share your ideas, and percolate, and then come to the next city council meeting with like more defined. Bake the cake,
Let's do a real
let us
test.
eat it.
Let's do a real test.
I don't want to mix it all up.
Okay, let's do
Let's do it.
Just wait.
Let's-
Dr. Glassman's a totally different level.
All right.
I guess what she's talking about is, you guys get sort of somebody who doesn't have a pony in the horse, a pony in the race, somebody who's completely.
Dog in the fight.
That does not do, doesn't.
The people with the ponies are the ones that are going to help us out, so I want to make sure we don't throw them out the door.
You can hear objectively, and
everything.
then. you
It's
go
not
off
either
to
or, it's both, it's
Just-
everything,
just
so
a-
I agree.
Just an opinion from prior experience after hearing all of this again. The foundation of what we need to have any success, and I agree with everything I heard, the foundation of success is trust. If city council says use this software and the city has trouble implementing it, it's going to be a bigger disaster than anybody thinks might happen if we just proceed today. The key is, in my experience, having done major projects implementing new software on the fly, you jump in with both feet if you have a younger, well-oriented person on staff who can champion it for you. If you have that person that you are comfortable with under Joe's staff, that you believe you could anoint, that has the drive and the desire to make it happen, and you believe they do, you should jump in with both feet. If you do not have that person, I would not pull somebody from the outside in, because it causes more disruption with the staff.
I don't know how you, I don't agree with you. I had a startup. We did a startup to do email compliance for the financial services market, all right? Before we got there, if you were a broker dealer, you were a rep, if you sent an email out, you had to send it to your compliance officer in paper. They had to look at it in paper, and then he would get back to you and approve it, and if there was something wrong, they could stop your email from going. So we built an application, sat between the sender and the compliance guy. They could put words in there that said guaranteed, so if the word guaranteed showed up in the email, it would go to them, and they could stop it before it went out. If there were no words in there, it could go. And we sold that product to Symantec.
So
I
let me
made
ask
some bucks off of
Let me
that.
ask you
So
one
it can be
question,
done.
because I don't want to make an assumption. I
Yeah?
agree with you, it can be done. In my experience, the difference between a startup and what we're talking about with city staff, within a startup, I would think almost every person on your payroll is incentivized to make it happen, or they don't make it up. The city staff isn't making money that way. Most startups are equity-based. So the people that
I'm
you
not
have-
talking about taking city staff, and I'm saying if the application looks like it's good, we should do something to understand, can it work? And if I don't have staff in place to do that, there are people we can bring in from the outside who will help us accomplish that task. And I think we should do that.
See, now this is already.
I agree, it's whether that person will mesh with the staff or not.
I guess, you know,
My vision to talk about technology was not for us to start creating wheels. I mean, I was hoping we'd be talking about what is there already. It could be antiquated, but what's there that we can tap into that we're not tapping into? Not how can we help develop something. You know, I've said before, we're doing triage. We're not building a new emergency room right now. we can build the new emergency room and the new hospital when we don't have the emergency going on. But right now, we're doing triage, and we need to be relying on tried and true methods of how to do triage to get this done. And then, once things are calm, we can talk about a proper system that helps in the long run. And the staff shouldn't have to spend a lot of time implementing something that's out of the box. It's plug and play. And we need to I need someone to tell us, what are all the plug and play things that are there that we can just pull off the shelf and start getting people back faster that are technology. I mean, we know how to do things manually. There are plenty of technologies out there already. They've been around for a long time. They're not the greatest, they're not the latest and greatest. They're not going to get everyone what they want, but they're going to do better than the manual process we're doing now.
Agree with the concept. In fact, I hate paper. I'm a digital person, and I want all of our processes to be streamlined, and we are way behind the 8 ball as a city. There is no doubt. I do want to caution, again, be careful, council, of being sold on a product that is a staff effort to do.
Yeah.
But also, I have yet to see a system that is off the shelf, city uses it, city's out, we're running streamlined. It is very difficult to implement, but that doesn't mean we can't do public-private partnerships and work together, but it absolutely takes some staffing expertise to be able to be part of that. And so I just want council to appreciate that point and to support that structure that we have as a city.
And I think as a council, we got to start looking over the horizon. We got to look. This is not only for what we got today. I mean, I got all these architects and all you folks that sit there and say, you guys can't get anything done. It's going to take me 6 months to get something finished. We got to find a way to fix that, because that's just going to continue. You're going to keep bitching. So and somehow we got to be looking. There's a future out there. There are things that are being done today that can help us enormously in the future, and we got to look at those and pick. We can't pick them all. Pick 1 or 2 or 1, whatever the thing is. If we think that has got the potential of really changing the game the way we're playing it, I think we got to look at it. I think the council would be. We're wrong if we don't try.
Yep. Well, we're wrong if we don't look and explore.
Yeah.
And this is what it is, an exploration.
We got 5 more minutes.
Okay.
We did cut off Maurice before he was finished.
Oh, that's okay.
We'll give him 2. Scott 1, Abe 1, and then we got to wrap it up. Sorry. Go ahead.
The game plan is, so there's 2 types of things that we can do. One is take one thing off the shelf that we discussed, and it is the delay.
Right.
That it requires time and effort from the staff. That is like when I said about the boat that is sinking. The boat was sinking already, now we added more tripulation to the boat. It's gonna sink faster. So it's not about should we do something or not. If we didn't do anything, we're down. We're like at that time. So what can we do right now? Ethically. And then what can we do in parallel to even make it better? All these AI tools that we're developing in parallel that don't require as much as that. One is a game plan. 2 things. Please direct the staff to give you the information. What is required in terms of staff and money and approvals to get Epic implemented.
In clarity, it's not Epic LA, because we don't take Epic LA's system and implement it here. It's Tyler Energov, and then we have to configure it to the city's structure. That's what we're
Something that belongs to the ecosystem of the fire department.
Right, so let me ask this question, Joe. I don't know what Epic LA is. I don't know any of these things. But if it's, let's say the decision was we wanted to go with that product. Can't we just hire someone to do the work the staff would, that you keep saying the staff needs to do?
No,
just throw money at people and get it done?
No, with these implementations, you have project consultants that are part of it, but you also have to have staff members that are part of that team.
Right.
So you really, and those companies actually will not just implement it for you.
And how was they it?
But what's an example?
I
What's
don't know.
an example?
I have no idea what their cases are. It probably took them years.
What's a concrete example of something an existing employee of the city would have to do that can't be done by someone else that we pay to do it?
But versus Epic LA, you submit to fire.
I want to know the answer to that. What is there must be 100 of them, I imagine, from what I'm hearing. So what's one concrete example of something that we can't pay someone to do that you keep saying this? I'm not being adversarial. I want to understand the notion of we have a huge budget and it's there for a rainy day and it's fucking pouring. So What is there that we can't buy?
And I want to be clear, I'm not disagreeing with the point that we have to do something. I am trying to put it in context and manage expectations, and also that the council can't be the one to just go say, hey, we're hiring the sales team, staff put it in. We have to bring that to council.
I don't know, forget the bureaucracy of how it
But those companies have to require staffing expertise. So anybody who's in our planning department, our building officials, they have to be part of that process because they
Why? Tell me
they
what
are the
they need.
experts on it.
So just tell
So
me.
what you need is people who understand what our rules are.
Correct.
I sent you a resume, someone who understands our rule. There are people out there.
God
who
knows what our
understand.
rules are.
Again, a council manager form of government, we don't just hire people that.
Our council manager form, we're trying to solve a huge problem.
Okay, wait. So is the issue, a government structural issue you're raising, not a technological
No.
issue?
Well, two things, resumes and staff, there's HR, there's competitive process, there's legal rules. We don't just hire people
We can
that.
adopt an ordinance tomorrow that overrides that, right?
I would like to understand this without being just to have a discussion. What is the process?
For
If we were to-
implementation or for hiring people?
Maybe they're both, because once I get the roadmap, then we can
City
get
council only hires the city manager,
Right.
the city attorney, and the city treasurer.
there. Okay,
100, and that is abundantly clear.
yeah.
The staff through an HR, there has to be a competitive process
Right.
for how we hire people.
Gotcha. So like, you
And-
put it out there,
And
there's
it
a
is-
90-day
it is
thing,
ab-
they
There's
send you resumes,
absolutely a
gotcha.
clear delineation of, we do not just take what a council member recommends to us with a resume to hire somebody. That causes patronage. And that
Gotcha.
causes political.
Okay, but Joe,
Okay.
but are you saying that if a majority of the council
I'm
voted
understanding.
to direct the city manager to do certain things, or even voted to adopt an emergency ordinance that said, this is now the protocol for hiring people for the next 6 months, that's illegal? That can't be done?
It has to be
Trevor?
under, yeah.
Trevor,
Yes, so,
is that a law?
so we're a general law city, so we're under the council manager form of government.
Yeah.
The city manager is in charge of the administration of the city, and there's certain government codes that provide about how the city what responsibilities city managers have and what responsibilities the city council has. Now, there's interplay in different things if you're hiring, we're hiring a consultant or hiring different things from outside, but certainly within who's working in a city employee, that's all run and how the city operates, how it accomplishes these things. If the city manager doesn't get done, it's the city council to hire someone to do it that way. But the council doesn't, run the staff itself
No,
directly.
but I'm focusing
Yeah.
on a very specific issue.
Okay.
As an example. So, staff says, appropriately so, we've got a policy in place that we need to vet people, and it's a 2-month process. We have to hire an outside agency, I'm just making things up. We have to hire, this is our process that's in place. We have to hire someone to vet these. We have to interview at least 3 people. We have to select the one that presents X, Y, Z. That's the policy that we follow. Are you saying city council can't say, we are adopting a policy for this city saying, no, you don't have to do those things. What you are going to do is you're going to go out and find 3 people right now who are in this business, and you're going to make a decision within 24 hours as to which one makes sense, and you're going to bring it back to us as a contract and ask us to approve it. Are you saying we can't legally do that? Not practically, but we can't legally do that?
So what you're getting into here is what the rules are, what the policies are of the council, what are, we have a whole
Seems like
section of the
yesterday,
code
Wednesday.
that lists out how we can, go up how we go for proposals, how we take different actions. And if we want to amend that, there is room for the council to make changes to that. There are limits under, the government code and under employment law about how you would be able to do different things. But the council does set the overall structure of our municipal code and our policies, then it's implemented by the city manager.
Right, but we could hypothetically throw the municipal code out tomorrow by a vote. We could throw out every policy the city council ever adopted by a vote, and we could put in a whole new anything we wanted, subject to state law overrides.
You can do anything you want, but if it complies with state law.
Subject to, as I said, subject to state law override. But so what we need to understand is what are the constraints we're dealing with that are policy constraints that we have the ability to get rid of, and what are the constraints we can't get rid of? It's the same conversation we were having about the building code versus policy. We have the ability to override any policy that's getting in the way. We don't have the ability to override any state law that's getting in the way. And so when Joe says, rightly so, under the existing structure, you can't do it this way, he's right, but that doesn't answer the question of what power do we have to change that existing structure. We're in an emergency. We wouldn't ordinarily do that. We wouldn't ordinarily do it quickly. But we have an emergency and we need to be able to act more nimbly.
So I think that what's helpful is that the council says where it wants to get to what it wants to do, and then we can find a way to bring something to the council with its options that would sort of lay out how to get to the place that you want to be within the council manager form of government and the constraints that are on that. Where is it that you want to be on this issue?
So let me come back to the question I asked before, which is what legally is standing in the way? And I'm sorry, let me check that. I asked before, give me an example of one thing that we can't pay to get accomplished that requires an existing staff member to spend time doing, because we don't want to put more pressure and more work on our existing staff, which are stretched beyond the point of being able to do the work. Okay. If the answer is it's that we have to follow this protocol, not a thing that can't be done, but we can't get to that point because we have to follow protocol, we can get rid of that protocol, right? But I want to understand, is there actually a thing that a third party couldn't do? What is that thing if we had them in place? Not we have a difficulty getting them, we have to follow this process to get them. But what is the example of the thing that a third party couldn't do for us if we directed that the third party be brought in and we paid them enough money to do it?
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind, building official, is pretty apparent that you have to,
As I understood, because I was part of the Tyler Energo evaluation, right, Joe? When, I don't know if you were here when they were doing that, right? And we all sat in this room, right, we looked at it. And it was a surprise to me when they said at the end, because I was fully expecting the thing, everybody said, yes, we selected this is great, and I was fully expecting it to be implemented, we were dying for it, everybody is dying for it, I think. Pardon?
Who was part of the decision making?
It was a group,
Let
like,
Lauren
it was all
talk.
staff.
Yeah,
It was all
sure.
staff, right, that were sitting here evaluating it, and making a recommendation, and then I think it was city management that made the decision, as I recall. I'm not sure who made the decision, as like, let's get a bid from these people and find out what it's gonna take to implement. That's what I found out.
To be clear on process, I believe there was an RFP, a
Yeah.
contract has not been
Right,
awarded.
there was, right.
correct.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't
I
mean
want to be
to-
careful.
I
Lauren, you got-
didn't mean to, I'm just speaking, so the example is, Bruce, that what I heard, although wasn't told to me directly, but it makes sense, this system is still like a machine learned system. You have to teach it the city's processes, you have to teach it what type of submittals come in, and to which departments they belong, and to what types of projects have to go to GEO or EH or whomever, and what documents have to go where, and what's gonna get coded for GIS, and where you can pull from various pieces of information. And so it's a big job, and you have to have people that understand the
Right,
system.
so we must have
So we
50
just
people,
gotta-
so we must have 50 people that have worked here over the past decade.
Who
That
understand
we could
that.
give a ton of money
I'm just
to
saying,
come in here and
you were
answer those
just asking for an
questions.
example. I'm not saying it can't be done, you were just asking for an example of the types of things, and that's all I was
But
doing.
his question is exactly on point. If we have, here's the task we have to get done. Are there people out there who are not working for the city today who can come in and help us accomplish that task?
If we pay
there
them
are-
money.
If we,
For free, I'll do it for the city myself.
Yep.
For how long?
I mean, look, we
How
just,
many hours a day?
I get it, it's back to the thing.
Well, that's what I mean, the task force, maybe whatever this group is.
I still urge you to talk.
I
We
understand,
will,
but-
I promise you, Marissa, we will.
I'm hearing all you.
He's not in the room.
All right, it's 7 minutes after 6. Bring it back up here. Any last comments? Because is there something we should accomplish through this
Yes, I want
discussion?
to know.
I would like them to all
We'll get it done this week.
discuss, but you can do that without our sanctioning. Like, you don't need us to get together, is what I tell people. It's Brown Acts,
Is
anyway.
Maureen and her staff going to take a look at this Arch Star project?
Oh, that's a
They
good
took a cursory review of it. They took a demo. They had the demo.
They had the demo.
Did they,
And what did they think?
Because I don't think Maureen did, I think it
The
was
things I
Maureen.
communicated to you, that's a much bigger uptake than it appears.
Okay,
It's
so
a
here's,
much bigger load. It's a,
no, sorry. I can't, I'm sorry. It's too late. What we're gonna do is, we're having these meetings every other week for a while. We don't have a agenda yet scheduled for beyond the next meeting. So we're gonna have to bring this back. Maybe you all can do some homework and come back, now that you've heard our discussion. As Helen's saying, form your own task force.
Yeah.
Come
Cut up the
back to,
ingredients.
and come back to us, again, come back to us with concrete proposals, not thoughts, okay? And say, here, we've solved your problem, this is what we want you to implement, this is how it can be done. And here are 5 people that could do it, that you just need to give them the money to do
Or
it.
at least-
And Joe can say, well, we need to vet them, and we can either say, yeah, we agree, let's go through that process, or we can, as a council, override that. Maybe we can, well, you say no, we can't.
proceed as desired.
If I can make a quick comment, you have 5 brilliant tech
Okay.
guys here, 5 brilliant tech angels here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Put them to work, let them.
Well, no one's stopping them from doing anything.
Yeah, they can do it without us, yeah. They
All
don't
right.
need the city's
We're doing the
blessing.
plans first, we're doing the plans that you guys submit to us first, that's what I'd like to see.
Thank you guys for your
Thank
time.
you.
So that's what I'm saying, is let me use
I
my
know.
example.
Yeah, we increase the success rate.
Let's make an example.
Okay, we're done, adjourned.
Thank you.
Is this off now?
Not yet.
Let me do this.